The next day, Chen Feng reached the Gene Production Association early in the morning. The 3-day period was up and everyone had made their preparations. Xuf's whole body was shimmering with a faint light, not unlike those rich people who had upgraded all their equipment to +13 in online games. Xuf noticed Chen Feng looking at him and stated with his back straightened, "It was made from a mutated black python beast's skin." Nouveau riche. Without restraint, Ziling derided, "Other rich people are all low profile in their lavishness and possess inner beauty. Who would wrap themselves up like a Zongzai one, like you? Safety comes first." Xuf was immeasurably proud of himself. Scram. Ziling stared at him. "Let me tell you, the mutated beasts there are all very sensitive. If you do not conceal your aura, you will probably get surrounded." "All right." Xuf concealed the glow he was radiating in an unsatisfied manner. Chen Feng couldn't help but to laugh at this. Next, everyone introduced themselves. There were 4 people in the party, with Xuf being the captain, Ziling being the deputy captain, a skinny youngster dressed in black and standing behind them that only mentioned that his nickname was Monkey, and a tall and sturdy guy called Tai Shi who, from his appearance, should have a genetic ability related to body enhancement. "How do we go?" Chen Feng asked. "Follow me." In a mysterious manner, Xuf brought everyone to the 36th floor of the Gene Production Association. It was the parking lot, and a delicate-looking flying vehicle was parked in front of them. Storm Tech's latest flying vehicle, Spectre 7. Xuf proudly introduced it. The strongest chip of their company is installed within. Able to race, able to go invisible, possessing a certain amount of reconnaissance and anti-reconnaissance capabilities, built with sturdy materials, and able to resist attacks. When we leave, it will be able to conceal itself automatically. It is the best choice when going on an exploration. Chen Feng exclaimed in admiration. This was totally a fully armed tank. "Stop bragging." Beside him, Ziling said faintly, "It is said that this flying vehicle has a bad anti-interference capability, causing it to be easy to intercept. There were already a few accidents before. Hence, even its name, Spectre, was changed to Hearse instead. Everyone was silent. Chen Feng suddenly felt a chill. That was number 6. This is number 7, the latest product. How many times do I need to repeat that? Xuf rolled his eyes before waving his hands. Fine. Everything said by this big mistress here is correct. I will stop bragging. Would that do? Go. Everyone, let's get in the car and depart. Narrowing her eyes, Ziling laughed. She merely couldn't stand seeing this Xuf fellow flaunting his wealth. They all got in the car. The translucent roof closed and the vehicle bolted out like a rocket. Whoosh! The Spectre 7 pierced the air as it moved. Chen Feng's eyes were shining. This was actually a true flying vehicle. Despite the fact that there was a fixed virtual route when flying within the city, it still gave off an amazingly stunning impression. The speed of the flying vehicle was extremely fast. Their journey of 100 kilometers was finished in a short amount of time. Getting close to their destination, the speed of Xuf's vehicle slowed instinctively. Be careful. This is not a peaceful place, Xuf reminded them. Although this is only the outer layer of Dragon's Passing Mountain, the amount of mutated beasts around here is not low. Naturally, the scariest things at this outer layer are not those mutated beasts. Instead, they are human. Those genetic warriors hanging around nearby are the scariest thing here. Understood. Everyone nodded their heads slightly. The Spectre 7 flew quietly, reducing its speed greatly without raising any billows. With the operation of its chip, not a trace of the sound of the wind could be heard. From this, it could be seen how accurate the name Spectre was. We can go down in front, Xuf told everyone. At that time, Monkey can start scouting, while Tai Shi is in charge of protecting Chen Feng. Understood. Everyone slightly nodded. Even Ziling, who always liked to go against Xuf, did not joke around. Whoosh! The flying vehicle moved quietly. Just as Xuf prepared to stop, the control panel within the flying vehicle started to tremble frantically. Countless warning windows popped up and red lights started flickering within the vehicle. Not good. Xuf's expression turned unsightly. Interference. Jump out of the car. Ding. Xuf pressed a button. Damn it, the roof won't open. What? Everyone's expression changed greatly. Let me. Tai Shi bellowed. Open. Blue veins could be seen on both his arms as a gush of dreadful power bubbled up. He tore the translucent roof off with brute force, revealing the world outside before their eyes. Go. Ziling grabbed Chen Feng as the rest of them quickly jumped out of the vehicle. Whoosh! The flying vehicle streaked across the air in a perfect arc before crashing against a rock far away and exploding loudly, and thus Spectre 7 turned into Hearse 7. Shwa, shwa. Graceful sounds resounded around them. There were people. Chen Feng narrowed his eyes as he secretly prepared his wind blade. He knew that going on explorations was dangerous. However, he had never expected to be ambushed even before they reached their destination. However, he was not surprised at all. In his previous life on Earth, there were also those who put nails on the highway, causing trucks to be overturned, before robbing the goods within. He had seen way too many of these on the news. Regardless of which world it was, it would never lack these kinds of people, who wanted to reap without sowing. Interesting. Xuf's gloomy and cold laughter resounded. Interesting. To be brave enough to ambush me, your father. Everyone looked over. There was actually a blood stain on Xuf's forehead. Obviously, it was the result of him knocking against something just now. Are you alright? Ziling asked anxiously. Small wound. Xuf looked in front of him. Let us take a look at who these people are. Exactly. Around them, silhouettes started appearing. A total of over 20 people had Chen Feng and the group surrounded in the middle. The leader, a middle-aged person, appeared and looked at them, somewhat surprised. Your father, have ambushed around 30 to 40 vehicles these few days. You are the first group that was able to escape from the vehicle. And you had never thought of the reason for that? Xuf smiled happily. I originally wondered which expert it was. Yet for a mere half-assed E-class warrior and a bunch of F-class henchmen to dare to rob us. That dreadful aura emerged once again from Xuf's body. Shwa. He soared, forming a fist with his right hand as flame energy condensed in his hands before ferociously smashing in the direction of the ground. Raging flames storm. Bang! With Xuf as the center, an area of 10 meters around him exploded. The ground ruptured and was engulfed in flame. Constant screams could be heard before they gradually disappeared. The trees in their vicinity turned to ashes in a split second, while on the ground, 20 pitch-black corpses were left. One move. Only one move. These robbers were all defeated. Hiss. Chen Feng inhaled a mouthful of cold breath. Secret art. This Xuf had actually mastered a secret art. The so-called secret art was a formidable skill that was a research product of using gene fusion as a foundation to rouse the genetic potential within one's body. Compared with Chen Feng's knowledge from his previous life, it was equivalent to esoteric knowledge, something intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with a specialized knowledge or interest. The genetic warriors of this world could perform one fusion at every class. Fusing one gene at F-class, fusing one gene at E-class, all the way until the highest level acknowledged by the genetic union, S-class. In total, one could perform 7 gene fusions. It was equivalent to a human body containing 7 types of genetic abilities within. However, the genetic ability obtained during gene fusion was only a foundation. Apart from the genetic ability, the secret arts one obtained through the pairing of genes to form suitable genes was the truly formidable power. For example, Xuf's Raging Flames Fist, a 2-star secret art, a secret art that required 2 genes to trigger its activation, hence being called a 2-star secret art. Requirements: F-class, Dibed gene, strength type; E-class, Firefox gene, spiritual type. Only those possessing these 2 genes within their body could perform the Raging Flames Storm skill. This was a combination of a strength type gene and spiritual type gene. Was it the best option for one to fuse with the strongest gene available at every class? Naturally, that was not true. Gene fusion was a form of art. Each gene would provide a different ability. However, this was only a single ability. Only when the genes within one's body were combined, activating secret arts from gene combinations of 2, 3, or even more genes, would an even more terrifying power be displayed. However, having multiple genes within one's body and possessing a secret art were 2 different matters altogether. Even if one did not take into consideration whether the 2 genes within your body fulfilled the activation requirements for a secret art, even if the requirements were met, could a normal person afford to purchase a secret art? Obviously, one couldn't. It was obvious that this Xuf was not some ordinary person. Chen Feng contemplated. Seems like the corpse of that leader just now wasn't here. Killing intent flickered in Xuf's eyes. He actually escaped. Monkey, track him. Understood. Monkey's eyes suddenly turned into blue color. A resplendent radiance blossomed from his pupils as Monkey started sweeping through their surroundings with his eyes. Chen Feng had only accidentally catch a glimpse of his eyes. yet that was sufficient for him to sense the dreadful power within. No traces within 1 kilometer. I think he has escaped. Do you want to continue expanding the range? Monkey calmly reported. Let it be. Xf shook his head as he regretted inwardly. We don't have time to play with him for now. We can take care of him when we return. All right. Everyone nodded. Xf looked at his flying vehicle that had turned into scrap metal. A pained expression was plastered all over his face. Damn it, for Zilling's crowbeak too, to actually be accurate. Turning into a hearse. Don't blame me. As Zilling saw Xf's emotional eyes, she raised her hands quickly. As long as a flying vehicle is controlled by a chip, there will be some spiritual type abilities that are able to interfere with it. This is something unavoidable. It was simply unexpected that this broken flying vehicle of yours had been strengthened in all aspects except its anti-signal interference ability, which was still pitifully weak. Say less. Xf unhappily said, since we are already at the outer layer, we can directly walk over. But then it would be hard on Chen Feng. He is, after all, not a warrior. He thought for a while. Taishe, if, later, Chen Feng's stamina can't take it anymore, carry him on your back. Understood, Taishe answered. Chen Feng was speechless. Did he look so delicate? Encountering disaster before reaching their goal, everyone's expressions became graver. Earlier, if it wasn't for Taishe tearing the roof apart, they would probably have been done for despite being skilled. The people here were truly dangerous. Even a normal F-class warrior might possess some inconceivable methods. Be careful. Xf said, after this forest, we will reach our destination. Rustle, rustle. Everyone moved forward carefully. The mutated beasts around here were only at F-class. After all, hence, these beasts did not pose much threat to them. Once in a while, there would be some blind ones that came over to attack them. Yet all of them were directly smashed to death by Xf. As for other genetic warriors, under Monkey's eyes, there was no place for them to hide. Hence, none of them dared to approach the group. Very powerful. Chen Feng was inwardly speechless. No wonder they dare to come explore with just such few people. Other than Zilling, who had yet to make her move, the other three were excessively powerful. Was this the power of a E-class warrior to be so strong after fusing with 2 genes? A small flame started to ignite within Chen Feng's heart. Soon, they left the forest. Although Xf had introduced it to him, when Chen Feng truly looked at the sight in front of him, he was still alarmed. This was Dragon's Passing Mountain. Footnotes 1. Zongcai, a traditional Chinese food made of glutinous rice stuffed with different fillings and wrapped in bamboo, reed, or other large flat leaves. 2. Crowbeak. Chinese people consider crows a bird of ill omen. So crowbeak is used to describe people who said ominous things directly. There's also a possibility of the prediction being efficacious. Blue. An endless expanse of blue. As they walked out of the forest and stood on the cliff, facing them was a vast ocean. This place they were at was actually a coast. How was that possible? Chen Feng was stupefied. Back then, the shark gulf that he had met the mutated shark at was at the coastal direction of Gold City. Yet Dragon's Passing Mountain was at a completely opposite direction. Was it an inland ocean? However, they had traveled for over 100 kilometers, yet they had not even seen a drop of water. There was not even a lake. How was it possible for a sea to exist? Chen Feng thought he was seeing things incorrectly, so he opened his screen to search the map. Indeed, no water sources existed. Here was a desolate piece of land. Even on the satellite map, nothing could be seen. You can stop searching. Xf shook his head. This was once a wasteland. One day, it suddenly turned into a sea. As for the reason, nobody knows. This sea is not connected to any water source, yet it flows continuously without stop. If one insists on looking for the source, it's there. Chen Feng followed Xf's gaze and looked at the only island in the sea. On the island was a mountain, which was also their current destination, Dragon's Passing Mountain. The origin of this nameless sea might be there. Dragon's Passing Mountain. Chen Feng memorized this name. Zilling opened her mouth. Let's go. As Chen Feng was curious as to how were they going to cross over, Zilling smiled faintly as she took a step forward and ice started extending under her foot, instantly freezing the rough sea water. On the sea surface, a layer of ice was formed. They stepped on the ice surface and walked toward the island. After walking a certain distance, the ice behind them would automatically melt while, in front of them, new ice would constantly form. An extremely powerful genetic ability. Chen Feng was inwardly alarmed. None of these 4 genetic warriors were weak. They were not the only explorers here. However, as the others saw Ziling's ability, they started avoiding them, moving far away. This was the deterring power of an E-class warrior. Soon, Chen Feng and the group reached the island. On the island, there was only a dragon's passing mountain and nothing else. From the exterior, all sorts of huge weeds could be seen growing on the mountain, as if there was nothing special about this place. However, the moment Chen Feng entered the mountain range with Xf and the group, a piece of icy blue emerged before him, glittering dazzlingly. Chen Feng was inwardly shaken. Within Dragon's Passing Mountain was actually a cave formed from ice. This mountain is inwardly hollow. At this time, Xf opened his mouth. The seawater floated and condensed into this ice cave here. It is not known what power is affecting this place. However, we can be sure that this is not man-made. It is extremely bizarre. After getting what we need, we must leave immediately. We must not attract the attention of that existence in the fifth layer. Within the fifth layer was a D-class mutated beast. You came before? Chen Feng asked in a low voice. This place gave him an extremely bad feeling. Crisis everywhere. At this moment, he felt like he had returned to the same situation as his previous life, where accidents could happen at any time. Luckily, as Chen Feng looked at the remaining luck value noted on his status window, he was somewhat reassured. We came here before, but we were stopped at the restriction before the third layer. Xf nodded. Can't break through by force? Chen Feng asked suddenly. Restrictions were also formed by energy. As long as one used energy far surpassing what it could resist, one could still directly break through the restriction. We tried. Xf was expressionless. We end up attracting 30 mutated beasts and almost got killed here. Chen Feng, let's get started. Then, Xf inhaled deeply. I must obtain that material. Understood. Everyone nodded quietly as the group slowly entered. Being protected in the middle of the group, Chen Feng was very safe. Besides that, they were only going to the fourth layer to get a material. With 4 E-class warriors, as long as they were somewhat cautious, there wouldn't be any problems. Faint blue light blossomed from Monkey's eyes. At times like this, he did not dare to relax either. At this moment, Gold City High School. The students that had graduated had once again assembled at the school. Is everyone ready? The teacher in charge, Ch. Hong, looked at the 30 students in front of him. This is our last graduation cultivation trip. As per how it was done in the past, we will select ruin for everyone to explore. This is also the last time I will lead everyone. Our destination this time is Dragon's Passing Mountain. The students cheered. Dragon's Passing Mountain. A place they had heard about a lot of times. It was said that this was a paradise for adventurers, especially in recent times where, due to unknown reasons, countless valuable materials started growing at that place, attracting countless explorers to explore there. There were also a lot of mutated beasts there. After killing them, one could obtain a huge amount of mutated blood essence. Teacher, which layer are we going to this time? The students were excited. Which layer? Ch. Hong said indifferently. All layers. What? The students widened their eyes. Dragon's Passing Mountain was merely something those off-campus rubbish cultivators claimed to be an explorer's paradise. However, for us, it is something not worth our time at all. Hence, this time, we are going to sweep through the whole Dragon's Passing Mountain, including the fifth layer. Ch. Hong said loftily, and this is teacher's graduation gift to you all. Yay. Countless people cheered. Ch. Hong smiled without speaking. Able to become a teacher in charge in a seeded high school. How could Ch. Hong be a normal person? He was a D-class genetic warrior himself. A mere Dragon's Passing Mountain? He did not put it in his eyes at all. He had already investigated it. The strongest in the Dragon's Passing Mountain was only that single D-class mutated beast at the fifth layer. For those countryside warriors, it might be very strong. For him, however, it was nothing. He was confident that his ability was far above those common warriors that had not received a regular education. The reason he decided to bring this group of students on this exploration was also as an investment. All 30 of these students had basically passed the examinations into seeded universities with bright prospects. As long as there were a few among them who stood out among their peers, his status would also rise, akin to the boat floating higher as the tide rises. Even those who did not have good results in the universities would at the least still reach D-class, a level not weaker than him. One exploration in exchange for the 30 favors. This kind of investment, regardless of how one look at it, was extremely profitable. However, teacher. A student suddenly opened his mouth. Since the Dragon's Passing Mountain was the place frequented by the genetic warriors outside, for us to sweep through it like this, will it bring about any trouble? Trouble? Ch.26-50 smiled. Children, what kind of trouble do you think those trash that can't even enter a university could bring us? Remember, you are the strongest among the younger generation. You all are the students with the greatest talents that have been picked after going through countless selections by the school. You all are entitled to being arrogant. In the future, this world will belong to all of you. Ch.26-50 said loftily. Those unqualified trashes are not qualified to cause you any concerns at all. Yes, all the students had their blood ignited, so they were actually so impressive. True, in this age, having an educational background signified absolute combat power. What should they be afraid of? The ones that should be scared were those common warriors instead. And in the midst of the cheering crowd, a female student was looking around her grudgingly. Chen Feng, you still choose not to come? Let's go. At Ch.26-50's order, everyone moved. The target, Dragon's Passing Mountain. At that moment, on a normal-looking hill near Gold City, two silhouettes in black clothes were looking at the direction of Dragon's Passing Mountain. Before their eyes, a huge screen appeared. On the screen was surprisingly the image of the whole Dragon's Passing Mountain. Is everything ready? As per our plan, countless valuable materials have been grown at Dragon's Passing Mountain. Now, the whole Gold City knows that this is the most valuable exploration site. The numbers of people exploring Dragon's Passing Mountain have increased by 3 times compared to the past. That's good. Should we continue the investment? It's time to wind things up. That voice coldly stated. How can the money we invested be something so easy to get? Soon, they will all know. Currently, at the second layer of Dragon's Passing Mountain, Chen Feng and the group were carefully moving forward. Everywhere around them were blue-colored ice walls. This place was like a maze with countless routes within. Light swirled before Chen Feng's eyes as his consciousness returned to reality. On the ice wall in front of him, a drop of blood essence that radiated extraordinary patterns was flickering incessantly. A different glow was also appearing constantly on the ice wall before it ultimately shattered. 45 seconds. Restriction lifted. Chen Feng slightly relaxed his breath. The restrictions here were much simpler than the one Xif had taken out previously. Chen Feng directly worked on it himself without relying on his luck values. Although it was slower, it was not slow enough to drag everyone down. Here, Xif passed over a bottle of spirit regeneration reagent. I have a lot of these items. Use it as you wish. Thanks. Chen Feng nodded slightly. Under the extensive operation of spiritual energy, the speed in which the digitized mode ran could be accelerated. Hence, Chen Feng's spiritual energy exhaustion rate was extremely high. Luckily, there was Xif, the rich guy, around. Hence, Chen Feng was able to improve his skills with the unending cycle of constant consumption and recovery of his spiritual energy. His skills in gene search under digitized mode were also improving greatly. There's no problem, right? Xif was somewhat worried about the restrictions on the final 2 layers. No worries. Chen Feng smiled. During crucial times, I won't hold things up. Then it's good. Xif understood. After dealing with the restriction and destroying a few mutated beasts, they continued moving forward. However, right at that moment, a burst of disorderly sound resounded from far away. Even the whole ice cave trembled slightly. What's the matter? The group was immediately alerted. Monkey. Xif's expression was serious. Faint energy flickered in Monkey's eyes as he suddenly displayed an astonished expression, as if he had seen something inconceivable. Something happened. In a low voice, Monkey stated, a lot of people arrived at the first layer. They appear to be very young, seeming to be students of Gold City. The one leading seems to be a teacher. All the restrictions and mutated beasts have been gotten rid of. Even some materials that were still young sprouts have been picked. These people are not here to explore. They are simply here to clean this place up. Students, teacher, everyone had a somewhat bad feeling. How many of them? 30 students and 1 teacher. Monkey paused. That teacher seems to be quite strong. How about the other explorers in the first layer? Cold glint flashed in Xif's eyes. All kicked out. Monkey sneered. Some of the groups wanted to resist, but were directly crippled by that teacher. If not due to there being students around, he would probably have killed them directly. Students, teacher. Chen Feng suddenly recalled the graduation affairs mentioned by Uncle Jiang. Chen Feng suddenly opened his mouth. Can I have a look at their images? Shwa. Radiance flickered in Monkey's eyes before condensing into an image in front of him. This was a small skill he had developed using his genetic ability. It was extremely useful. Chen Feng frowned. It really is them. You know them? Xf asked. MHM. Chen Feng nodded. They are students from 3rd year 2nd class of Gold City. My ex-classmates. That man was the teacher of my class, Ch.26-50. I remember him being a D-class genetic warrior. The other students were around F-class. After failing my examinations, I haven't been in touch with them. D-class genetic warrior. Monkey frowned. This teacher's strength was not weak indeed. You are actually a high school student? Ziling was astonished. You actually failed your examinations? What shocked Xf more was this fact. Based on Chen Feng's ability, how would he fail the examination? The knowledge demonstrated by Chen Feng along the trip alone was enough to easily surpass the level of the examinations. Chen Feng, is there a need to have such a big reaction? Chen Feng shook his head. I got plotted against. Nothing to say about it. MHM. Xf did not insist on sticking to this point. How's your relationship with them? Chen Feng summarized it in one word. Bad. Let's continue. Then, get the item we need before them. Xf did not hesitate at all. We must absolutely avoid encountering them. Only a few kids that were students. What do we need to be afraid of? Ziling sneered. Even if that Ch.26-50 is D-class, we are not afraid either. Unless he wants all his students to die here, he would not dare to start a war with us. Their teacher in charge is not the problem. The school behind them is the problem. Xf shook his head. After beating up the students, teachers will come out. After beating up the teachers, directors will come out. After beating up the directors, next it might be the vice principal. How are you so clear about this? Ziling blinked her eyes. Because I have accidentally killed a university student once. Xf said indifferently. Everyone. This guy was indeed fierce. This is not our territory. It's better to cause less trouble. Xf said. Alright. Ziling shrugged. The few of them left quickly as they increased the speed of their exploration. They went straight the whole way without stopping. As soon as they met a restriction, they would let Taishi protect Chen Feng while the others handled the mutated beasts, as Chen Feng used several minutes to deal with the restriction. In a very short time, they passed the 3rd layer and reached the 4th layer. At the same time, the students had already reached the 3rd layer. In the scene shown by Monkey, Chen Feng had seen the devastation laid upon the first 2 layers. A total mess. These students were akin to locusts. Anywhere they passed, not even a blade of grass grew. There's not much time left for us. Xf gazed ahead before looking at the coordinates on his wristband. The item I need is roughly there. As long as we remove that restriction, we can get it. The group carefully headed over. This was already the 4th layer. Different than the previous layers. The mutated beasts here already reached E-class. Even they might suffer losses here. Whoosh! A mutated spider beast dropped from the sky. Settle it. Xf did not even blink. Cold ice aura blossomed from Ziling's hands as she froze the spider. Wanting to deal with a mutated beast without leaving any signs behind, they could only rely on Ziling. 1 beast. 2 beasts. Monkey's eyes were clear like lightning. Under Xf's assistance, Ziling easily froze all the mutated beasts. These fellows won't be frozen to death. We need to move fast. Ziling was also somewhat anxious. The roaring sounds from the layer below were getting louder. Everyone else was very careful when they came exploring. Those students, on the other hand, were totally acting as if they were out on an outing together with their teacher. Evidently, from the loud noise, rampaging all the way without any restraint had also brought some troubles upon them. I know, Xf answered. Chen Feng and Taishi had managed to find an opportunity to rush toward the restriction. Protect me, Chen Feng stated calmly as he immediately entered the digitized mode. MHM. Taishi groaned. How long does it need? Xf asked. This restriction's difficulty level was much higher than the restrictions on the previous 3 layers. Based on Chen Feng's speed of roughly 1 minute per restriction, the time required this time might be much higher. However, unexpectedly, Chen Feng did not answer him. Chen Feng, Xf asked again. Done. Chen Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The restriction before them melted quietly. Damn. Xf and the group were stupefied. Only now did they understand Chen Feng's meaning earlier when he said that he wouldn't drag everyone down during a crucial time. This speed. It was even much faster than his speed during the interview. I'm convinced. Xf gave him a thumbs up. The group entered the secret room. There, A stalk of grass that flickered with purple color was swaying gently among the ice crystals. This was also their target for this trip. Ice blue silk, ice blue silk. Xif was excited. I finally found it. He carefully grabbed toward that stalk of grass. However, at that exact moment, the whole room trembled slightly while the walls in the icy secret room turned into the skin of a huge ugly beast. The walls at all sides was actually the torso of this beast. Not good. Everyone's expression changed. Camouflage. This was the ability of an ice chameleon. This ugly ice monster actually possessed the bloodline gene of the ice chameleon. Bang! A punch from the beast. Be careful. Zilling cried out in alarm. Shwa! A floating ice mirror appeared in midair. Bang! The huge ice beast punched downward, smashing the ice mirror immediately. The mirror was only able to delay the punch for an instant. However, this one instant was enough for Xif to react and escape by rolling his body. Bang! The ground was ruptured. A crater was actually formed from the smash on the ground. Damn! Xif was alarmed to the point where his whole body was sweating. Previously, if it wasn't for Zilling's fast reaction, he most probably would have died here. This damnable thing, a mere E-class mutated beast. Xif was enraged. Bang! Xif was on rampage. Countless punch accompanied by bright, dense flames smashed downward, creating one crater after another on the huge ice beast's body. Finally, the beast was beaten to death like that. An E-class mutated beast that was not even of the pure combat type actually dared to ambush him, and he actually almost fell to the ambush. Hateful. Xif ruthlessly stomped his feet as the huge ice beast turned into a puddle of liquid and disappeared. Xif looked at his surroundings, alert, before he carefully put that stalk of grass into his previously prepared case. At this, the group relaxed. This mission has been completed. Let's go. Xif nodded. The group left quickly, yet when they reached the entrance, bang! The wall at the entrance of the fourth layer was smashed apart. A group of youngsters walked out of it. The students and teacher of third year, second class had arrived. Chen Feng frowned as he subconsciously hid behind Taishe, only showing half his silhouette. There's actually someone at the fourth layer. Xi Kangshong did not expect this. As he glanced at them, he noticed that it was a group of E-class genetic warriors and he understood immediately. He indifferently said, "We want to train here. You all can yield this place to us." "All right." Xif nodded. They did not have any plans to fight this group anyway. However, at this moment, Xi Kangshong suddenly opened his mouth. "The case you are holding, what's inside?" Xif frowned. "The spare reagents I prepared. I'm buying them," Xi Kangshong said indifferently. "State your price." "Not selling," Xif stated, undisturbed. "Not selling or not daring to sell?" Xi Kangshong sneered. "This thing is probably something you got here, right? Let me think. Needing to be preserved using this case. There's only one thing, ice blue silk." Xif slightly paused his movement. "Ice blue silk?" The group of students immediately cried out in alarm. "I heard that thing is very valuable." "Yeah, being valuable is not the main point. The main point is that thing being hard to preserve. So there's plenty of demand but no supply for it." "Oh, yeah?" The genetic materials required by Sujin's breakthrough seemed to include ice blue silk, right? "I think so." Everyone was discussing spiritedly. "You all can leave after handing it over." Xi Kangshong coldly looked at Xif and his group. A faint gust of power shimmered in his hands. "Some things that do not belong to you, once taking them, will only cause you to lose your life." The group of students was excited as they watched on. This was how tyrannical a D-class genetic warrior could be. A few mere E-class warriors? What were they? And with their identity as soon-to-be university students, these countryside rogue cultivators would not dare to make their move at all. Otherwise, even if they won the fight, they would not be able to bear the consequences. "Live or die? Choose for yourself," Xi Kangshong said tyrannically. The cold glint in Xif's eyes had already condensed. He did not want to provoke these people. However, this did not mean that he was willing to be bullied by others. He did not expect that, despite avoiding them, he was still found by them. It seemed like Xif's expression became cold. Xi Kangshong also looked at them while smiling faintly, preparing to make his move anytime. The battle could happen at any moment. However, at this moment, a soft voice resounded. "Chen Feng." Everyone followed her gaze and saw that behind that tall and sturdy warrior, there was a silhouette. As they paid more attention to it, wasn't that Chen Feng? It's actually him. Dang. He started mingling with these rogue cultivators already? Probably because this is where a certain someone belongs at. Haha. Now things become fun. Some students took joy in calamity of others. Previously, Teacher Xi gave Chen Feng the best treatment. Unexpectedly, he had actually failed his examinations. Furthermore, he even refused to join the graduation cultivation trip. He actually came himself instead. Yeah, who knew that the magnificent top student would actually fail his examinations? Everyone started sneering. At this moment, Xif and the group was flabbergasted as they looked at Chen Feng. Top student? Amazing indeed. No wonder Chen Feng had previously said that he was plotted against. If he wasn't plotted against, based on Chen Feng's grades, was there a university that he couldn't enter? And his talent in gene producing. This was a true genius. Plotting against. This group of idiots evidently did not realize what had they done. Xif shook his head. Students nowadays were really getting worse with each batch. Oh, there was also the teacher. It seemed like his father's decision to not let him attend school, instead training him personally, was the correct choice. With these idiotic teachers, how many good students could result from their teachings? Chen Feng. Xi Kang's Hong looked at Chen Feng with a somewhat complicated expression on his face. You, Sai, how did you get reduced to such a condition? Xi Kang's Hong shook his head. I know you have a strong ego, so you were not willing to join our trip. But, Sai, fine, I won't say any more. Chen Feng. He remembered that this fellow did not invite him at all, right? I will give you face and let them live. Xi Kang's Hong indifferently said, let your friends hand over the thing and this matter can be settled like this. Is there a problem with your brain? Chen Feng sneered. He was somewhat curious as to why would there be a person with such a bizarre brain in this world. PFFFT. Ziling laughed immediately. Xif and the rest also had the corner of their mouths twitching as they tried to hold in their laughter. Saying these words at this moment was indeed straight to the point. Chen Feng. A cold glint appeared in Xi Kang's Hong's eyes. During the 3 years of high school, I gave you the best treatment. Is this how you repay me? Enough bullshit. Chen Feng shook his head. The school pays you a salary to teach. How did it become you doing me a favor? If you are sincere to me, it's fine. I will definitely be thankful. However, as soon as you found out that I failed the examinations, you did not even extend an invitation to me. Is this your integrity as a teacher? I know a lot of teachers in the school. Some teachers are truly kind-hearted. Some teachers are still upright and righteous despite being powerful. You are the only one I look down upon the most. Chen Feng sneered. Wanting to erect a memorial when you are a hooker. You really think that students are so easy to deceive? What a sharp mouth. Xi Kang's Hong expression turned ugly. You don't have a father or mother, so I can understand you being without manners. However, for you to not even know how to respect your teacher, this is totally being ungrateful. If I had not stumbled upon you, it would be fine, but since I encountered you today, let me properly educate you, giving you your final lesson to educate you in the virtue a teacher possesses. Bang! A cold glint blossomed from Xi Kang's Hong's hand as he prepared to make his move. Xuf and the group silently stood beside Chen Feng. The virtue a teacher possesses? Chen Feng burst out in laughter. These words coming from your mouth are akin to ivory spouting out of a dog's mouth. Chen Feng. Xi Kang's Hong's killing intent rose. You really think that these E-class trashes can protect you? No. Chen Feng shook his head. You don't dare to make your move. Why? Xi Kang's Hong sneered. You are very powerful. Chen Feng smiled faintly. If it was close quarters fight, we would naturally not be your opponent. However, are you sure that the students behind you can survive this? Let me think. During the graduation cultivation trip, the teacher was hell-bent on settling his personal grudge, causing all his students to perish, and only the teacher returned. This scene is truly quite spectacular, right? Xi Kang's Hong's expression immediately froze. Only now did he remember. He was now a teacher leading a class. It was fine dealing with the weaklings they encountered before. But now, his opponents were 4 peak E-class warriors. Could he really protect all the students and defeat them at the same time? Chen Feng. A soft voice resounded. Chen Feng subconsciously looked at the source of the voice. It came from a very beautiful female student. A student that was giving off a feeling of a delicate girl from a wealthy family, causing others to not be able to avoid wanting to protect her. Xu Jin. Chen Feng remembered this name. Oh, right. This was the girl the body's original owner was once secretly in love with. Due to his grades being among the best, their relationship was actually quite good. Why have you turned out this way? Su Jin softly said. At school, you were very modest and kind. Chen Feng. We know that you failed your examinations and are in a bad mood. However, How can you speak like this to a teacher? Teacher Xi treated you very nicely during our 3rd year. Even your scholarship was applied for with teacher's help. Otherwise, how would you be able to afford to buy a spirit-type gene reagent? Sujin said seriously. Chen Feng felt like the Sujin in front of him appeared to be radiating holy light. That dense light could even form a big word. White Lotus one. This was the girl the body's original owner had liked. What a heavy taste. Chen Feng couldn't even be bothered to expose her performance. At this moment, the remaining students also started to feel indignant. Sujin's word had actually affected every student's mood. That's right, how could a person be like this? Was what she said true? Xif asked curiously. Yeah? Chen Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. I was the top student. If the scholarship was not given to me, who could they give it to? He really did want to give it to others, however, could he? So it was like this. Zilling and the group were suddenly enlightened. Damn, even the school's scholarship became a teacher's tool for giving off favors? The schools nowadays were too scary. Teacher, we don't need to continue spouting rubbish here with them. Wang suddenly opened his mouth. I will protect the students. You can go deal with those few fellows. You have a way? Xi Kangshong knew that this student had a strong background. Unfortunately, even after he had tried to fawn on him many times, Wang was indifferent. Why had he suddenly stood forward now? Naturally, Wang smiled calmly. Rise. His wrist drifted around, activating the chip on it. A dim energy protective barrier enveloped all the students. E-class protective energy barrier, able to defend against one attack from an E-class genetic warrior, Wang said indifferently. Of course, if you were to let them rush over here to attack us, this cover of mine would not be able to hold on. Wang felt somewhat regretful. Due to his strength being too weak, he was only able to use an E-class energy barrier chip. Otherwise, no worries. That won't happen. Xi Kangshong smiled coldly. Just a few E-class wild dogs. Still not something that warrants my attention. Conveniently, I also want to take a look. Without these few dogs supporting you, can you, Chen Feng, still be so arrogant? Teacher, don't hurt him. Sujin said softly. Chen Feng is not a bad person. I won't. Xi Kangshong smiled at her. I will only give him a lesson. Or else, with his current attitude, he will provoke others in the future, causing him to lose his life. Only at this did Sujin retire. Chen Feng. His reaction toward this girl's performance could only be described with the expression gasping in amazement. At this moment, Xi Kangshong had already stepped forward. Bang! The terrifying aura belonging to a D-class genetic warrior was released. Even though Xuf and the group were already at the peak of E-class, they could still feel a terrifying pressure. D-class. Xuf smiled. This teacher in charge that had only hid within a school and trained to D-class really believed that a D-class could absolutely oppress an E-class? To even absolutely crush a peak E-class warrior? Let's give it a try. Then, a somewhat cruel smile was exposed on Xuf's face. At the same time, at the other side, Wang was looking at Chen Feng while smiling faintly. After getting a few wild dogs as your supporters, you think that you are now very impressive? Although Xi Kangshong is a good for nothing, today, I still want to take a good look at how will you be taken care of by him. This E-class energy barrier chip was something newly bought. Chen Feng was stunned as he looked at the layer of this barrier. There actually existed this kind of thing in this world. Of course, Wang was proud. This is not something a trash like you could have access to. No wonder I didn't see it last time, when I beat you up. Chen Feng was suddenly enlightened. Wang's hand trembled as veins appeared on his forehead. At this, the surrounding students remembered that a few days ago, it seemed like there were people who saw that Wang was injured. Unexpectedly, it was actually due to getting beat up by Chen Feng. He. Wang looked at Chen Feng coldly. Chen Feng, I will see how long you can stay arrogant. You are not worried about your friends at all? They will all probably die soon. Them? Chen Feng shook his head. I'm not worried about them. On the contrary, I'm worried about you guys. Worried about us? Wang suddenly felt an ominous feeling. Yeah? Are you sure that this toy of yours can defend against an E-class attack? Chen Feng was curious. Of course, Wang said in contempt. This is something produced by the Storm Tech. Before he could even finish his sentence. Leisurely, Chen Feng fished out a bottle of gene reagent that was flickering with white light from his pocket. From far away, he tossed it over. The bottle landed on the energy barrier. Bang! Endless thunderbolts bombarded the barrier. Bang! 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 In a split second, It was shattered by the thunderbolts. The impressive protective energy barrier mentioned by Wang was destroyed through brute force before even displaying its power. Everyone was stupefied. What f-king item was that? A protective barrier capable of taking on an E-class warrior's attack was finished just like that? How was that possible? Wang collapsed as he looked at the screen on his wristband. On it, two very dreadful words were written: energy exhausted. In other words, in a split second, Chen Feng's attack had exceeded the limit of what the energy barrier could take. Not only was the energy barrier destroyed, even the energy stones that he had prepared were exhausted. How was that possible? Wang pointed at Chen Feng for a long time, but he was still dazed, not daring to open his mouth. That was because, at this time, once again, Chen Feng had leisurely fished out another bottle of gene reagent that was flickering with the same light. Under the radiance of the blue-colored ice in the cave, it looked so dazzling. Want to try again? Chen Feng said leisurely, rolling the reagent bottle on his hand. Gulp. All the students gulped, looking at Chen Feng in fear, terrified that the item would slip from his hands. At the same moment, Ch.26-50, who was prepared to have a good fight and eliminate Xf's group, heard the noise behind him. At that, he stopped and looked at the reagent bottle in Chen Feng's hand, unbelievable expression in his eyes. This is also your harvest this time? Ch.26-50's gaze was cold. Very good. To actually threaten me using my students. Leave. I allow you all to leave. Ch.26-50 bellowed. Scram out of here. Chen Feng was beaming with smiles as he watched Ch.26-50's performance. Let's go, Xf said. They really did not want to continue interacting with this bunch of people with obviously low IQs. Chen Feng nodded faintly. Suddenly, he stopped his steps. He looked toward the students as he said softly, to put your trust on this Ch.26-50 fellow, all of you will regret one day. Scram. A person with no sense of shame. A few students cursed in rage. Damn it. Chen Feng, you actually dare to threaten teacher using us? Yeah? This is pushing it. A lot of them were feeling indignant. Why have you turned out this way? Sujin was disappointed. These damnable people. They actually dare to threaten me using all of you. This is truly. Ch.26-50 said angrily. Teacher, don't be afraid of him. We will take revenge for you. Yeah. We are all soon to be university students. Wait until we entered the university. A lot of the students comforted him. You all. Ch.26-50 was gratified. Although he appeared angry, inwardly, he wasn't really that angry. It might appear like he had been insulted by Chen Feng, but he had instead gained the favor of all the students. Why had Ch.26-50, who was obviously the strongest, retreated in humiliation? It was for these students. Very touching, right? It was apparent from the gazes of these students. Apart from Wang, who couldn't even be bothered about him, the eyes of other students were all filled with gratitude. This gamble was profitable. Footnotes 1. White lotus, a Chinese net-speak commonly used in sarcasm to describe a person who appeared pure externally yet dark and dirty within. In short, it referred to a pretentious person. Currently, Chen Feng and the group were far away. That teacher of yours was really awesome. Xf gasped in admiration. With his current insight, of course he had clearly seen things for what they were. If I didn't know better, I would have thought that fellow was an acting faculty graduate. Why did you not expose him? Ziling looked at Chen Feng curiously. I can't be bothered. Chen Feng shook his head. Since it did not affect our benefits, even if he were to fly to the heavens, I wouldn't be bothered. Everyone smiled. However, kid, you, on the other hand, have gained a whole new level of respect from me. Xf was still feeling astonished. Originally, he had thought that they would need to risk their lives today. Who knew that it would end with Chen Feng easily settling the whole matter? As he thought about that mysterious yet powerful gene reagent, Xf's heart chilled. This Chen Feng, who appeared to be a producer with only a 1-star production level, was absolutely qualified to be on equal footing with them. Let's go. Leave this place first. Chen Feng suddenly opened his mouth. This place keeps giving me a bad feeling. Same here. Monkey said the same thing. Go. With Xf's lead, everyone left quickly. Outer layer, dragons passing mountain. On the shore, two people were looking at the middle island from far away. On the screen in front of them, numbers kept popping out, ultimately stopping at 96. Almost there. The first batch of people driven out by that teacher are almost out. It's a pity. If that damnable fellow did not drive them out, the number of people left would definitely be higher. 96 people are enough. The two of them exchanged calmly. Several hundred years ago, a drop of a mutated sea dragon beast's blood essence was accidentally left here. It turned the wilderness into a sea, with the power of sea dragon's blood blending into every drop of seawater here. From that moment, they had started their plan, using several hundred years to breed mutated beasts. All of it was for today, to change this sea dragon's blood into sea dragon blood essence. And now, as long as the blood essence of all the mutated beasts containing a trace of sea dragon's bloodline were fused, it was possible for it to be refined into the legendary sea dragon blood essence. As for the mutated sea dragon beast, it never appeared. How would something like that appear in this kind of barren land? Even those legends related to dragons were rumors created by those from Gold City to seek fame. The expectations of a few hundred years. A person mumbled to himself. Yeah, we are totally unqualified to have any sort of contact with a proper sea dragon blood essence. However, through this method of brewing sea dragon blood essence in secret, there's a chance for us to actually produce a sea dragon gene. As long as the sea dragon gene is fused, giving birth to an expert, our long one, family will truly rise up. True. Only one expert need arise, that will be enough. Another voice said in a low voice. Their eyes were burning. Then, begin. Both of them raised their hands. Bang! The sea started to boil. At this moment, the eyes of all the mutated beasts here turned red. Howl, howl. Countless screams resounded. The few people that had almost reached the coast were under crazed attacks by the mutated beasts that had appeared suddenly. Not good. All the mutated beasts have gone crazy. Their strength has increased multiple times. We can't defend against them at all. Hurry, to the coast. Everyone started escaping frantically to the coast. However, just as they were about to reach the coast, one of the two people there waved his hand as seawater rushed forth and drew them back into the sea. No! A despairing scream resounded. The seawater became crimson red in color. This very moment, human blood and mutated beast blood were fused together. At the same time, Chen Feng and the group that had just reached the fourth layer entrance had their expressions changed greatly. The third layer that had been originally cleared had, for an unknown reason, filled with a lot of mutated beasts. All of the beasts had red eyes and were rushing toward the fourth layer. Not good. Xf's expression changed. The third layer is full of mutated beasts that have gone crazy. Not only the third layer. Monkey suddenly opened his mouth. The mutated beasts in the whole of Dragon's Passing Mountain have gone crazy. In the first, second, and third layers, all the mutated beasts are rushing toward here. What should we do? Then, Ziling became somewhat pale. They were able to confront Ch.26-50 without fear. However, for mutated beasts, hold on. The radiance in Monkey's eyes flickered. I found a route. Follow me. Alright. Everyone followed him. Bang, bang. The whole Dragon's Passing Mountain was trembling. Something happened. Something major happened. However, they had yet to escape 100 meters from their original position before they saw Ch.26-50 leading everyone else and escaping in panic toward here. Fifth layer. That mutated beast in the fifth layer came down. Someone yelled. That fellow went crazy. It was chasing after us. They screamed in fear. However, everyone ignored them. Chen Feng and the group moved quickly and left their line of sight. The superiority of having fewer people was displayed at this moment. There were too many members among the students, so they were not able to move fast at all. Ch.26-50 was almost driven to despair. This was because he had suddenly found that, if this continued, everyone would really die, including him. Indeed, if he was able to escape with everyone, he would be able to gain more favors. However, regardless of how many favors it was, he needed to be alive to use them. And now, Ch.26-50 looked at the shaking ice cave and the mutated beasts that were everywhere and struggled internally before clenching his teeth. Light started swirling around him and he rushed out by himself. He had actually escaped. Teacher. All the students were stupefied. Escaped? Their teacher that was in charge had actually escaped alone? Wang was stunned. Sujin was stunned. Everyone was stunned. No matter what, they did not expect that righteous teacher who claimed to do everything for their good would actually abandon them without the slightest hesitation. At this moment, Chen Feng's earlier words seemed to echo within their heart. To put your trust on this Ch.26-50 fellow, all of you will regret one day. Now, they were already regretting it. Regretting one's past deeds. What should they do? This was not a place F-class warriors like them could stay at. Furthermore, All the mutated beasts here had gone crazy. Now, everyone collapsed emotionally. I don't want to die. Some people started crying. I am the future genius. I can't die here. Some people started screaming. Sujin looked toward a certain direction while a tinge of grief appeared in her eyes. If they had listened to Chen Feng earlier, would he have actually saved them? However, everyone regretted it. Damn it. Wang felt his mouth go dry. He had never expected to fall into such a situation. He had wanted to contact others, but he found that, at an unknown time, all the signals here had started to be blocked. They couldn't contact anyone. I can't die. I shouldn't die in this place. Wang was frantic. How grandeur was his identity? How could he die here? It absolutely could not happen. However, how to survive? At this moment, he had fallen into despair. We are finished. Some of them had already started sitting down powerlessly. The mutated beasts were approaching them without stop. Many of them started to activate their genetic ability to resist. Yet how much good would it do? Regardless of how strong your genetic ability was, regardless of how talented you were, here, at this place filled with E-class mutated beasts, they could only die. Can we contact the school? Someone asked. No signal. Sujin shook her head bitterly. We are all finished. This time, everyone had fallen into despair. Geniuses, universities, at this moment, were but a joke. Footnotes 1. Long also means dragon in Chinese. At this moment, Chen Feng, monkey, and the group had already found the new exit. Due to the large amount of mutated beasts being attracted by Ch.26-50, the pressure on them was lowered. From here we can reach the third layer, Monkey said in rush. There was a restriction here. It was a different entrance of the fourth layer. Within such a short period of time, Monkey had managed to find the route back. This wasn't an easy feat. It depends on you now, Xf said nervously. Chen Feng nodded. However, just as he was about to enter the digitized mode, he suddenly paused. What's the matter? Xf and the others exchanged glances. Chen Feng said softly, as if he had felt something. At this time, as everyone quieted down, from far away, a mournful sound of weeping became distinct. That was the sound of third-year, second-class students. It was their voice. As Zilling and the group heard this, they were stunned. That teacher actually escaped alone. Even this team of theirs, which was assembled on the fly, did not give up on their teammates. On the other hand, Ch.26-50, this teacher in charge that had personally brought the third-year, second-class students here had actually abandoned his own students and fled by himself. This was simply ridiculous. Ignore them, Xf sneered. These students are unable to distinguish right from wrong. They are all good for nothings anyway. Right. Zilling believed the same. Following their teacher on an exploration? To heck with that. They were totally robbers. For him to have demanded they hand over the material they had gotten after great difficulty, yet not one student had objected to that action. Where were their morals? However, Chen Feng had stopped his footsteps. Chen Feng, it can't be that you really want to save them, right? Xf and the rest were stunned. From his previous actions, they could see that Chen Feng was a practical person. At this time, he wouldn't suddenly become a kind-hearted messiah, right? They had been surviving in the wilderness for a very long time. What they feared the most was getting this kind of team member. I only recalled one thing. Chen Feng frowned. Who is confident that we can definitely escape? No. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Surviving? At this time, no one had absolute confidence. Crises were everywhere. They did not even know what kind of monster that scary fellow from the fifth layer was. Even if they could leave dragons passing mountain, none of them were aware of the situation outside. Furthermore, they had a premonition that the crisis outside might not be any less than the one inside. At times like this, no one had absolute confidence. This time, it was truly dangerous. Chen Feng suddenly opened his mouth. I have confidence. For it, Xf and the rest were ecstatic. In this kind of dangerous situation, Chen Feng actually had absolute confidence. Of course, if you all are willing to trust my words. Chen Feng smiled. Xf and the rest exchanged glances before ultimately nodding resolutely. Although they had not been together for a long time, they still believed in Chen Feng. Then follow me. Chen Feng turned around and walked toward the students. Sigh. Xf and the rest smiled bitterly. They could only follow him. They did not know why Chen Feng would suddenly become a kind-hearted person at this time. However, since Chen Feng had confidence, they would totally fight it out alongside Chen Feng. At times like this, we can only trust in this fellow. Everyone smiled bitterly. Chen Feng walked unwaveringly toward the student, while a smile curved on the corner of his mouth. Kind-hearted? How was that possible? He couldn't be bothered with this bunch of fools. Even the body's original owner was on bad terms with these students. He wouldn't be any different. The reason he wanted to save them was due to him sensing a familiar aura drifting past him. From that, he understood something. Wanting to leave alive, the only lifeline was within the hands of these students. To be accurate, it was in Wang's hands. At this moment, the sea zone of Dragon's Passing Mountain had already been dyed red with blood. Nobody noticed that. High above on the air, a spotlessly white cloud was drifting there, moving up and down with the wind, gracefully. Fourth layer of Dragon's Passing Mountain. All the students were seated on the ground in despair. After trying everything they could and finding out that they couldn't hurt those mutated beasts at all, they had totally given up. They were waiting for the moment of death. All 30 of them were sitting on the ground. The silence was stifling. There was only a faintly discernible weeping sound. In the distance, a mutated beast was dashing toward them. Everyone knew that the moment the mutated beast reached them was also the moment of their death. At this moment, Sujin stood up and blocked the way in front of the mutated beast. If we must die, then let me be the first to die. Sujin closed her eyes. If we didn't trust teacher so much and organized this activity, nobody stopped her. Because it was pointless. Since everyone would die anyway, what was the difference between who died earlier? Howl. The aura of that mutated beast became increasingly terrifying. A lot of students hugged each other while trembling. As they saw the beast reach Sujin, they couldn't help but start closing their eyes. However, at this moment, a loud sound reverberated, waking everyone up. The moment they opened their eyes, they were all stunned. A silhouette stood in front of them. It was Chen Feng. Chen Feng had brought the few friends of his and killed that mutated beast. Although it became stronger, it's still trash. Xif stepped on the mutated beast's corpse. Ziling curled her lips as she looked at those stunned students. Although I do not know why that idiot Chen Feng wants to save you all, if any of you dare to slow us down, I will be the first to kill you all. Monkey and Tai. She glanced at them coldly. Chen Feng saved us? Only at this was everyone awoken from their stupor. Saved. They were actually saved. Everyone was crying tears of joy. Next, they quickly recalled that it was Chen Feng, the one scolded by them earlier, the one driven away by them earlier, who voluntarily came and saved them. At this thought, everyone lowered their heads in shame. Sorry. Everyone was ashamed. Chen Feng smiled calmly. In front, Sujin stared at him in daze. Am I dreaming? Chen Feng grumbled. Do you want to take a nap while you're at it? Go. Chen Feng did not give them any time to talk about useless things. Everyone, don't talk. Don't be noisy, don't cry. Whoever dares to create a disturbance, I will directly throw you out. Only this way. Chen Feng paused. Can we survive? Everyone was silent. They noticed the we that Chen Feng said. As they recalled their attitude toward Chen Feng earlier, a lot of them lowered their head in shame. Let's go. Chen Feng brought everyone to the entrance found by Monkey. I can help you all. Wang inhaled a deep breath. Although he hated Chen Feng, at times like this, both of them had to work together. Although I do not have any combat power, I am also a beginner gene producer. My spiritual energy is very powerful. I can help you remove the restrictions. Chen Feng glanced at him and coldly said, no need. Chen Feng. Wang clenched his teeth. I know you hate me. However, now is a matter of life and death. Can you let go of your hatred? Your spiritual energy is only 30 points, while I'm currently at 80 points. It is many times higher than yours. The speed I remove restrictions at is much faster than yours. No need. Chen Feng walked towards the restriction indifferently. Chen Feng. Wang was bursting with rage. Yet, he could only talk nicely. This kind of restriction, with 30 points spiritual energy, you need at least 3 minutes to remove it. I only need 1 minute. Wang had not even finished his sentence. Restriction removed. Wang opened his mouth wide, not closing it even after a long time. All the students were stupefied. Damn. 1 second. What heaven-defying talent was that? This was their top student Chen Feng, the number one of their school. Chen Feng. The Chen Feng that was high above everyone else. At this moment, they suddenly had a feeling that even if Chen Feng did not enter a university, he was still not something they could overtake. Perhaps, some people were simply born as geniuses. Final warning, stop spouting nonsense. Chen Feng's gaze swept past Wang coldly. You only need to follow behind us. Let's go. Xuf found it laughable. Comparing restriction removal speed with Chen Feng. Kid, Even if you had 100 points of spiritual energy, it was useless. Restriction removed. Everyone left in an orderly fashion. With the lesson earlier, this time, nobody opened their mouth. Even Wang stopped talking. Instead, he was silently following behind. The group reached the first layer without any problems. The mutated beasts they had met on the way were dealt with by Xuf and his group, while all the restrictions they met on the way were instantly removed by Chen Feng. That's right. Instant removal. Powerful spiritual energy. Beginner producer? What was the point? In front of Chen Feng, they were all nothing but a joke. All the way from the fourth layer to the first layer, no restrictions were able to last longer than 1 second in front of Chen Feng. Under Xuf's unending supply of spiritual recovery reagents, Chen Feng swept through everything in their way, smoothly bringing everyone out. All the students were stupefied, while Xuf found their reaction funny. Soon, they left the ice cave. However, just as they left the mountain range, everyone was shocked by the scene outside. Blood. Blood everywhere. That vast ocean had actually turned blood red. What actually happened? Xuf was still planning to ask some questions when, suddenly, sounds of explosion arose from the mountain behind them. Rumble rumble. The whole mountain collapsed and sounds of rumbling could be heard non-stop, causing everyone's heart to palpitate. At this moment, all the third-year, second-class students felt a lingering fear in their heart. If they had been somewhat slower, if it wasn't for Chen Feng's heaven-defying speed of restriction removal, they looked at Chen Feng, the person who had saved them like a hero earlier. At this moment, he was still as calm as ever. Perhaps this was a true genius. Bang! The whole mountain collapsed. As your colored dice splattered around, the spot where the dragon's passing mountain was on earlier had actually sunk down, forming a huge whirlpool akin to a huge open mouth that was sinister and dreadful. A big mountain like that had actually been swallowed cleanly in several tens of seconds. With the collapse of the mountain leaving a whirlpool behind, what was left of the huge island was only a ring-shaped zone with the whirlpool in the middle. The scariest part was that, within the whirlpool, a D-class mutated beast, the very same beast from the fifth layer, was frantically struggling, trying to escape yet firmly held onto by the suction force of the whirlpool. Howl. One after another, sounds of howls thundered. The D-class mutated beast struggled frantically. However, the more it struggled, the deeper it sank. Slowly, it was swallowed by the whirlpool, no longer visible to the eyes. Hiss. Everyone inhaled a breath of cold air. Xuf and everyone else were standing at the edge of the ring-shaped island. As they saw this scene, their whole bodies started perspiring. They almost suffered the same fate as that mutated beast. This place won't last too long, Ziling said. Let's leave quickly. Ice energy blossomed in Ziling's hands and the water surface under their feet turned into ice. However, before they could even start to feel happy, suddenly, all the ice shattered instantly. Bang! A mutated beast with red eyes appeared on the sea's surface. Splash! Splash! A series of bizarre sounds arose. Immediately after, one scary-looking mutated beast after another started appearing on the surface of the red-colored sea that resembled a sea of blood, causing everyone to start shuddering in fear. What the heck was this? Ow! All the mutated beasts went crazy after seeing strangers. Whoosh! Whoosh! Waves splashed around. Provoked by the aura of strangers, all the mutated beasts rushed toward them. Their strength was constantly increasing, while their amount was too many to count. Damn it! Ziling and the rest put up a resistance in a hurry. Flame, ice, all the power they could muster had been unleashed, yet they couldn't stop the beasts at all. What should we do? Xuf howled loudly. The amount is too high. We can't stop them anymore. Ziling smiled bitterly. Bang! Taishi smashed away a mutated beast that was flying toward them with a punch. His expression was as cold as always. The strength of his whole body had been stretched to its limit, as the amount of mutated beasts here were too high. Damn it! Xuf's heart chilled. What on earth happened to this damnable place? Nobody knew. These beasts were not strong, but there were too many of them. As for those students, even under the protection of Xuf's group, they were all still shivering in fear. Some of them with support-type genetic ability were carefully unleashing their abilities. However, it didn't help much. This one trip had destroyed all of their arrogance as soon-to-be university students. What should we do? A lot of the girls started weeping softly. At this moment, Chen Feng suddenly walked forward. Under Taishi's protection, he reached the coast. Everyone's gaze was subconsciously attracted by him. Monkey, done with your calculations? Chen Feng asked. Yes. Monkey nodded slightly. Over 600 F-class mutated beasts. Despite all of them having their strength increased from going berserk, there are no E-class beasts. Only, the amount is too high, so we can't deal with it at all. Zilling, smash all these mutated beasts back into the seawater, Chen Feng bellowed. Understood. Zilling's whole body radiated with a cold glint. A terrifying frost energy exploded instantly and forced many of the mutated beasts that were already near them back into the sea. However, this was the most she could accomplish. Those mutated beasts did not suffer any injuries. Instead, they started their charge in a crazier manner. I tried my best. Zilling paled and almost dropped down on ground. Sujin held her up. Then, next. Leave it to me. Chen Feng inhaled, and the reagent with a white flickering radiance in his hands was thrown into the seawater. Bang! White rays of light blossomed in Chen Feng's eyes. A cold glint flickered. Endless amounts of thunder energy blossomed at this moment. A small, bizarre snake formed of thunder appeared, flickered in the sea, and grew crazily under the nourishment of the mysterious power contained within the seawater. With the nourishment from the seawater, it instead unleashed an astonishing might that even Chen Feng himself had not predicted. Bang! Bang! The sea of blood was boiling. All the mutated beasts were electrocuted till their skins were charred and their insides were tender. They struggled frantically in the seawater. After a long time, when the thunder disappeared, only a vast expanse of floating corpses was left on the sea of blood. Dead. All dead. Even Chen Feng had not expected this. The thunderstorm reagent only possessed the power of one E-class attack. His original plan was, despite the power of the thunderstorm reagent and facing this amount of mutated beasts, to clear up a bloody path at most, enabling them to escape. He never expected the thunderstorm reagent's power in water, especially within this mysterious seawater, to far exceed his imagination. So powerful. Everyone was looking at Chen Feng in shock. Even Xuf and his group were stunned. They had originally thought that he was amazing enough with his ability to destroy Wang's energy barrier and instantly remove restrictions. They had never expected him to be powerful to such an extent. This fellow. Xuf smiled bitterly. At the same time, all the students of the third year, second class were looking at the figure standing on the shore. Chen Feng was not far from them, yet he gave everyone an indescribable sense of security. More than once, it was this person, who had been despised by them, that had saved them from despair. Failing the examinations? What a joke. Everyone felt like their faces had been slapped, feeling extremely ashamed. Chen Feng. Wang stared at Chen Feng, bellowing in his heart. He could not believe it. How could Chen Feng possess such strength? That fellow was akin to trash. Now that Wang was supported by ample resources, he should be leaving Chen Feng far behind. How could he allow this trash to step on his head? No. Wang mumbled. It was only due to him not fusing with the gene yet. Chen Feng, I will become stronger than you. Not only in production, when I have fused that gene, I will become the strongest genetic warrior and producer in history. The path that normal people like you all don't dare to tread, I shall tread. Wang roared in his heart. He did not feel the slightest sense of gratitude toward Chen Feng for saving his life. Being saved by Chen Feng, he felt worse than dying. It was just a few days ago that he had made a solemn vow to Chen Feng that he would leave Chen Feng behind. Yet today, he had been suppressed by Chen Feng countless times. How would he be happy? It was simply feeling worse alive than dead. This feeling was akin to getting his face stepped on by Chen Feng. I will not lose. Wang resolutely clenched his fists. However, at this time, Chen Feng couldn't be bothered with them at all. Instead, he was looking at the opposite bank of the sea. There stood two black-clothed people. Dense spiritual undulations were flickering around their body. Chen Feng opened his mouth. Monkey. Understood. Blue light blossomed from Monkey's eyes. They flickered unceasingly and he confirmed shortly after, it was them. They are actually planning to use the whole sea as a material to produce something. Their intention is to kill everyone here. Monkey's tone was cold. Then just get rid of them. Killing intent rose in Xuf's eyes. By killing them, we can survive. Go. Zilling had recovered a lot. She stood up with an ice-cold expression. Let me see who on earth these two fellows that were pulling the strings behind everything are. Currently, at the opposite bank far away, both black-clothed men had noticed what had happened opposite them. Interesting. Dragon 1. It seems like we have been found, a black-clothed man said, smiling. What's there to be afraid of? Dragon 2? Dragon 1 smiled calmly. A few E-class wild dogs. Although it is regretful that the D-class fellow managed to escape, with these guys as offerings, it is still sufficient to produce a sea dragon blood essence. Oh, we are making our move now. The corners of Dragon 2's mouth curled up in a smile. Dragon 1 nodded. I'm starting to have an ominous feeling. To avoid having something unexpected happen, I will start refining the sea dragon blood essence while you go and deal with those wild dogs. While you are at it, you can destroy that bunch of students as well. Understood. Dragon 2 shook his head. Fresh students. I am looking forward to it. Ah. Whoosh. The pitch-black figure disappeared in a flash. Ah. Dragon 1 shook his head. He looked at the whirlpool in the sea. The whirlpool was twisting crazily and had actually condensed the power of the whole sea to its core. The color of the nameless sea became clear while all the blood-red color was drained to the core of the whirlpool. Dragon 1 pointed midair and the whirlpool suddenly inverted, releasing the D-class mutated beast. Bang! The D-class mutated beast was thrown off. Its body dyed red with blood. Howl! With a bellow, the mutated beast dashed forward. Its red-colored eyes were fixed on Dragon 1 and filled with greed. On Dragon 1's body, it smelled a familiar smell. Whoosh! It dashed toward Dragon 1. Ha ha! I have been waiting a long time for you. Dragon 1's gaze was sinister. Let me have a look. Are you capable of bearing the power of a dragon? Dragon 1 cut his own finger and a drop of blood essence flew into the body of the blood-colored mutated beast. There was only a weak trace of dragon gene in Dragon 1's body. However, this drop of blood with a weak trace of dragon gene in it was sufficient to complete the sea dragon gene that was formed by the power of countless bloodlines. Bang! A bizarre light beam soared toward the sky. Suppress. Light swirled around Dragon 1's hands as he anchored the mutated beast in midair. He needed to completely destroy this mutated beast, turning it into a drop of sea dragon blood essence. For this drop of blood essence, they had sacrificed too much. This time, they couldn't afford a single mistake. At the same time, on the ring-shaped island, Chen Feng and the group that were preparing to leave were stopped. That black-clothed man had quietly blocked everyone's path. Dear children, don't be in too much of a hurry to leave. Dragon 2 smiled faintly. D-class. Xf's expression turned unsightly. He had originally thought PK class was enough to be considered an expert in this tiny gold city. He did not expect that he would encounter so many D-class warriors in just one exploration alone. What are we scared of? Zilling sneered. I refuse to believe that. Even with so many of us, we still can't kill him. Hee hee. Dragon 2 smiled lightly. His clothes burst apart as his slim figure suddenly grew, swelling up like a balloon. A gush of terrifying power emerged from his body. The amount of muscles on his body was increasing greatly. Shockingly, barbs started growing on his body as well. Under the sunshine, they gleamed with a sharp aura. 2 meters. 3 meters. Dragon 2 grew larger, and his body became extremely terrifying. Bang! Xf punched down on him, yet his whole fist became blood red. Couldn't move him. The ice crystals shot by Zilling only served to tickle Dragon 2. As for Taishe, it was worse. He was good at defending. However, he did not have much attack power. Raging Flame Storm. Xf activated his 2-star secret art. However, there was no use. Xf stared at his bruised fist, his expression turning unsightly. This fellow's body was filled with blood thorns and poison. Even after punching him, he would injure himself instead. This, how to fight. Was a D-class genetic warrior powerful to such an extent? 3 PK class warriors joined hands after using all sort of power-boosting gene reagents and they couldn't even resist him? What damnable genetic ability is this? Chen Feng was equally shocked. This is a 2-star secret art, blood-devouring metamorphosis. A somewhat timid voice drifted over. Chen Feng turned his head around. It was actually Su Jin. Blood-devouring metamorphosis? Chen Feng had some impression of it. Blood-devouring metamorphosis, 2-star secret art. A formidable secret art that was a research result using mutated blowfish as the core. 2 genes were required for its formation. F-class blowfish gene, supplying the morphing ability and a weak poison ability. E-class mutated blood wolf gene, supplying a body-enhancing ability and self-heal ability. Such a secret art was extremely powerful, even more so when facing Xf and the group that was one whole class lower than him. This is somewhat troublesome. Chen Feng looked on. Xf and the rest could only resist with great difficulty and were not his opponents at all. At this speed, they would get killed one by one after no more than 2 minutes. Monkey opened his mouth suddenly. Chen Feng, do you still have that thunderstorm reagent? Yes. Chen Feng nodded slightly. He had prepared a total of 3 thundersnake gene reagents. There was still 1 left. Although the mutated blowfish is a very strong beast, it is like a balloon. Its body swells, but within, it is empty. Although the blood wolf gene has greatly enhanced the body and given it the self-heal ability, becoming the blood-devouring metamorphosis, the bane of this type of genetic ability is still string-shaped attacks. Monkey said solemnly, I will attack him later. You can throw the gene reagent into his body. Sounds feasible. Chen Feng thought for a bit. However, at the very least, a cut that can fit the gene reagent is required. Leave this to me. Monkey sneered. Although I don't have attack power as strong as them, a mission like piercing a balloon, I am still very good at it. Light suddenly radiated out of Monkey's eyes, and azure-colored radiance covered his pupils as his whole eyes turned a blue color. This was his genetic ability. However, it only lasted a moment. Within one of his eyes, a blazing flame suddenly appeared. In a flash, it expanded, and his whole eye turned a gold color. A dreadful power converged there. 2-star secret art. Chen Feng was awed. Monkey had a 2-star secret art as well. Bang! The gold color flickered within Monkey's eye. A streak of terrifying gold-colored radiance pierced through Dragon 2, who was still feeling proud of himself, leaving behind a fist-sized hole. Somewhat amazed, Dragon 2 looked in Monkey's direction. 2-star secret art golden fire eyes. Interesting. Dragon 2 laughed heartily. It was unexpected that a scout like you had actually fused with a combat gene. However, do you think there's any point in this? On his chest, the hole was slowly closing up. The reason for blood-devouring metamorphosis ability being a 2-star secret art was due to it making up for Blowfish's weakness of being easy to destroy by possessing a formidable healing ability. As long as it did not exceed his limit, it would be able to self-heal without stop, not suffering from any sort of injuries at all. The wound was healing rapidly. However, at the same time, Xif and the rest started to attack crazily. Dragon 2 knew this was their final struggle, so he intercepted their attacks with all his power. Chen Feng, who had prepared himself, charged forward and pushed the final bottle of Thunder Snake gene reagent into Dragon 2's wound. What is this? Dragon 2 was distracted. Explode. Chen Feng activated it without the slightest hesitation. Bang! A terrifying power immediately exploded within Dragon 2's body. He was very powerful. As a D-class warrior, he possessed a power far surpassing ordinary people. However, with Chen Feng directly causing an explosion within his body, regardless of how powerful he was, he would not be able to survive. Bang! Dragon 2's enormous body was heavily damaged from the explosion. Hiss! Just like a pierced balloon. Dragon 2's body returned to normal. His eyes lose their color. Even in death, that pair of eyes were fixed on Chen Feng, as if unable to believe that he would actually die in the hands of a F-class warrior. Had it ended? Somewhat exhausted, Xif and the rest looked off into the distance. There was another black-clothed man who was also a D-class warrior. Currently, he was being engaged by that beast, unable to deal with them. Kill him. Xif saw through the crux of the matter with a glance and fiercely said, take the opportunity while he is busy dealing with the beast. Understood. Zilling and the rest caught up with him. The 4-man squad acted once again. Their killer moves appeared immediately and smashed upon Dragon 1. This time, they did not have any confidence. This was totally an act of desperation. However, something unexpected happened. That black-clothed man did not defend himself at all, receiving all the attacks. Bang! Blood splattered. That black-clothed man was actually pierced through by Xif and others, getting killed on the scene. Everyone widened their eyes. How was this possible? Chen Feng's heart shuddered. Dead? Dead just like that? The mastermind that was much stronger than the previous guy was dead just like that? He could obviously have easily dodged their attacks. This fellow. Right at this moment where everyone was bewildered, the blood started to boil. The corpse of the black-clothed man turned into pool of blood midair and enveloped that D-class mutated beast. Accompanied by a bellow of that beast, it was refined alive. Before everyone could react, the mutated beast had disappeared. In the air, only a drop of glittering blue-colored blood essence was left. That was the sea dragon blood essence. This guy. Chen Feng's pupil constricted. With the escape of the teacher in charge and them surviving, the requirements for sea dragon blood essence's refinement were not met. Hence, this guy used his own blood to fill in the gap. What a vicious heart. What a terrifying guy. Had it ended? How was it possible? The sea dragon blood essence that was produced after the sacrifice of such a person, how could it be possible for it to fall into their hands? But he was obviously dead. Unless he was not the mastermind at all. Chen Feng and the rest exchanged glances as their scalp felt numb. The 2D class warriors were actually mere foot soldiers. How terrifying was the real mastermind? Ha ha ha. We survived. All the students were in ecstasy. Survived. This one exploration had put them through countless desperate struggles. That feeling of powerlessness and pain was something they would not forget for their whole lives. Thank you, Chen Feng. Countless students were feeling grateful. Chen Feng shook his head and did not speak. He only looked at the sea in silence. The happy expression of the students froze. As they saw the unsightly expression of Chen Feng and Xuf's group, they seemed to realize something and started shuddering in fear. Could it be? That very moment, dong, a small sound resounded. It was akin to the heartbeat of a primordial god. At the same moment, countless students immediately started vomiting blood. Chen Feng paled. On the opposite bank, a faint silhouette appeared. Step by step, he reached the coast. Yet he did not stop his steps, continuing calmly onto the seawater. His foot stepped on the seawater. However, no ripples was left on the water at all, moving so lightly. It's him. Xuf's expression changed greatly. Long Yi, a disciple of an influential family at Rock City. This family was a self-proclaimed descendant of dragons. Long Yi was a well-known figure of his generation. All the genes he fused were related to dragons. Regardless of whether they were true dragons or fake dragons, the abilities were terrifying. The last time he appeared in public, he was already a C-class genetic warrior. His current power, unknown. Retreat. The pupils of Xuf and the group constricted. Ziling was even dragging some of them as they frantically moved backward on the seawater, returning to the ring-shaped island. Stopping him? What a joke. An expert at this level was not someone they could stop. Long Yi, C-class. Possibly higher. Xuf's face was green while everyone else was greatly frightened after listening to those words. Those students were all ashen-faced. God, why would such a terrifying guy come to Gold City? On the sea, Long waved his hand and two corpses appeared from the water. Dragon 1 and Dragon 2. It has been hard, Long said calmly. He pointed lightly and both corpses turned into ashes. Finally, Long took a glance at the sea dragon's blood essence, and a smile appeared on his face. When he turned around to face Chen Feng and the rest, his gaze was already ice cold. Since Dragon 1 and Dragon 2 are already dead, you all can accompany them in death. Long, you dare? Xuf bellowed. These children are all students. You dare to start a war with Gold City's school? Xuf was clear. Now, only the school was able to cause this guy to refrain from shooting at the rat for fear of breaking the vases. Students? Long's gaze was serene. He looked at the students that were trembling with fear and raised his hand slightly. It doesn't matter. I only need to kill everyone, and nobody will know about it. Not good. Everyone's hearts leapt. Whoosh. Long lightly waved his hand. Bang. The whole sea exploded. At this moment, even the sea was overturned. Go. Xuf clenched his teeth. The four of them unleashed the last of their remaining strength. However, the attack formed after exhausting all their strength was decimated before it even reached Long's attack. That's right. With their ability, they were not even qualified to get near the attack. In this split second, the ring-shaped island collapsed. The heaven collapsed while the earth caved. The power of the whole sea was unleashed as it rose, forming a wave with a height of several tens of meters and smashing downward with boundless force, akin to a tsunami. We are finished. Everyone was ashen-faced. What damnable strength was this? It was certain that when that terrifying attack fell, everyone would be smashed into meat paste without question. This was the power of Long. This was the power of a genetic expert. Damn it, to actually die this way. Xuf smiled bitterly. To die in the hands of such an expert isn't too bad, right? Ziling mumbled to herself. Time to die? Monkey suddenly remembered something. Chen Feng, the lifeline you mentioned. At this, everyone looked toward Chen Feng. However, they were astonished to find that, at this moment of life and death, Chen Feng actually smiled. Our lifeline has appeared. What? Xuf and the rest blanked. Bang! That terrifying tsunami was still sweeping toward them. Yet, just before the attack hit them, a red silhouette descended from the sky and stood in front of the tsunami. Who was this? Everyone widened their eyes. Before they managed to take a clear look at that person's appearance, they saw that, in the air, a crimson flame appeared the same moment the red silhouette landed, and it took on the shape of a huge sword, slashing down toward the tsunami. Bang! The seawater thundered. As the fiery radiance flickered, an astonishing scene appeared. That terrifying tsunami was forcefully split into two by the sword and streamed past beside them. That tsunami containing the terrifying power of Long was gone just like that. Slashed into nothingness with one attack. So powerful. Everyone's hearts leapt. As they looked on, They were stupefied. The person who had saved them was actually a little girl wearing a red dress. She was young, appearing to be 12 or 13 years old. She had red lips, white teeth, and delicate features on her face. Under the long eyelashes was a pair of quick-witted big eyes. Yet, at this moment, those eyes were filled with killing intent. Everyone's hearts trembled. Only now did they remember that this was the girl that stopped the tsunami with one slash. Shit! Chen Feng opened his mouth, stunned. He had thought that Wang's protector would be a powerful middle-aged person. He'd never thought that this protector would be a 12 or 13-year-old little girl. Furthermore, to possess such terrifying strength. Chen Feng subconsciously glanced at her and his heart trembled immediately. Those eyes. This little girl that appeared so young possessed a pair of clear and limpid pupils. They appeared quick-witted, causing one's heart to palpitate, as if they were capable of seeing through one's heart. This little girl was definitely not a simple person. "It's you." The expression of Long, who was still showing off his prowess a moment ago, changed greatly when he saw the little girl. He immediately grabbed toward the sea dragon blood essence and accelerated backward. He actually fled without the slightest hesitation. Thinking of leaving, a cold and crisp sound echoed. Bang! The bright and resplendent sword ray descended once again. A flash of red light. Plop! Blood splattered and a severed arm sword. The hand that was grabbing onto the sea dragon blood essence released its grip, and the sea dragon blood essence fell into the sea together with the severed arm. Hiss! Everyone inhaled a breath of cold air. Wang Yao! A mournful scream resounded. Long Yi stared at the little girl in front of him in resentment. "You are courting death. When I return, I will get someone to destroy your Wang family. I am going to let your whole family." Noisy. Wang Yao sneered. "If that's the case, you can leave more parts behind." Bang! A flash of red light. Another arm soared into the sky. "You!" That person stared at Wang Yao in resentment and spat out a mouthful of blood before disappearing in a flash of red, losing his courage to leave any fierce words before leaving. Everyone watched this scene in a daze. This little girl was too spirited, destroying heaven and earth the moment she appeared. The Long that was so unbridled earlier had both his arms slashed off and ran off without even daring to leave a fart behind. But who on earth was she? Was she here to save them or to kill them? After so many bouts of desperation, everyone no longer dared to have any wishful thinking. Luckily, the little girl was currently ignoring them. Sea dragon blood essence. Red light glimmered in Wang Yao's hands. Just as she was prepared to start looking for the sea dragon blood essence in the seawater, an old and imposing voice resounded. "Little girl. This thing, it's not something you can take, right?" Chen Feng's heart leapt. This voice. Their headmaster. Bang! An old man and a few teachers appeared. As soon as the barrier here had been removed, they had rushed here immediately. They had not expected that, apart from saving these students, there would also be an unexpected harvest. Sea dragon blood essence? What a precious thing. Its teacher, headmaster, and the others. All the students were crying tears of joy. They were saved. This time, they were really saved. Everyone started cheering. Chen Feng and Xuf, on the other hand, felt their heart leaping as they felt something amiss. The school had actually appeared at this time. Regardless of Wang Yao or the school, each party was capable of saving them. However, with both appearing at the same time, especially when there was such a thing like the sea dragon blood essence here. Scram! Wang Yao's tiny face chilled as she opened her mouth and said without a trace of politeness, "A bunch of old men who refuse to die. You are all appearing at this time to fight over this thing with me, little girl. This thing was originally something refined by the students of my school." Headmaster Zhu Wenwu stated kindly, "It should be you who is fighting over the results of these children, right?" Chen Feng. Those words, even he felt ashamed on behalf of the headmaster. How thick did one's face need to be in order to say those words? Did he not see how all the students were keeping their silence? Sujin stood out at this moment. "Headmaster, actually, she saved. You are called Sujin, right?" The headmaster nodded his head, appearing to be gratified, and interrupted her words. "You did very well this time. You only need to bring all the other students as you stand aside and spectate. This matter is not something you all can get involved in." "Ah?" Sujin was bewildered. "HMPH." Wang Yao sneered. "Even if you want to fight over this thing, it still depends on whether you all are capable of it." Bang! A large amount of red light emerged and an immense flaming sword condensed in her hand. The 2-meter-long huge sword was inversely proportioned compared to her petite body. However, The blazing flame on the huge sword caused even Zhu and Wu to feel pressured. This power, bang! Wang Yao soared to the air as she unleashed a terrifying power. HMPH. Zhu and Wu sneered and confronted Wang Yao in midair. Bang! In a split second, the whole sky above the sea turned red. Burning cloud. Countless people at Gold City looked in that direction in amazement. At this moment, the teachers that came with the headmaster charged into the seawater and started looking for the sea dragon blood essence. However, that sea dragon blood essence was not an ordinary object. It streaked around without stop in the seawater. Even tens of teachers could not catch it. Damn it. One of the teachers became ruthless and glanced at the students on the shore. You all come down and look for it as well. All the students started hesitating. No matter what, that Wang Yao was someone who had saved them. To fight over this thing with her. The faces of these students were not that thick. The one who finds that thing will be the most outstanding student of the current batch. The school will mark down your contributions in the resumes you send to the universities. That teacher stated lightly. Bang! The heart of all the students jolted. The top student, as far as a student was concerned, this title represented honor and glory. It was something that would follow them forever. During their few years in university, it would bring upon them an extraordinary meaning. They were tempted. Teacher, let me help you. A student jumped into the seawater. The other students exchanged glances and entered the seawater in succession. Chen Feng smiled playfully. Students. This was Gold City High School's education method. All these thankless wretches. Xuf looked down on these students. They are still young, after all. Chen Feng stated softly. Xuf and the rest rolled their eyes. As if you are very old. Sea dragon blood essence. As Chen Feng looked at those people flopping around in the seawater, he suddenly looked at Monkey. Monkey, is your ability able to see the sea dragon blood essence? No. Monkey shook his head. This item itself is the king of the seas. Falling into the seawater, coupled with the faint intelligence it possesses, it is very hard to find. That's why those teachers are allowing the students to help. Whether one can find it or not is totally dependent on luck. However, with this many people, they will find it sooner or later. Dependent on luck? Chen Feng shook his hand and looked at the 50 points of luck value he had. Suddenly, his heart was burning. So be it. Then, Chen Feng shook his head and stretched lazily. I still thought that you could sell them a favor with this. How could a favor be so easy to sell? Xuf laughed. Since there was no danger, the few of them could only wait there. Those teachers would probably not let them go before the result was out anyway. This water doesn't seem to be active anymore. Chen Feng reached the edge of the water without a change of expression and silently submerged a reagent bottle into the water. At the same time, his luck aura was activated. Whoosh! The luck value was frantically being exhausted. 10 points, 20 points, 30 points, 40 points. Suddenly, Chen Feng's hand trembled. He could keenly feel something knocking against his reagent bottle. Could it be? Chen Feng's mouth was dry. Outwardly, he did not dare to leak any of his emotions. Silently, he sealed the reagent bottle, hid the bottle in his cuff, and calmly stood up. Yeah? Xuf looked at the seawater. From today onward, I'm afraid there won't be any dragons passing mountain anymore. As the source has disappeared, the water here will gradually dry up. Everyone else felt the same. Who would have thought that they would encounter such an incident in this single exploration of theirs? Let's go to the shore. Chen Feng shook his head. It still feels dangerous here. Ziling nodded her head. Ice appeared. Everyone reached the shore and stopped there to wait. All this while, Chen Feng had luck aura activated. He was afraid that even the tiniest bit of abnormality around him would be noticed. To play a trick in front of so many powerful genetic warriors was akin to dancing on the tip of a knife. 1 point. 2 points. The luck value was still being exhausted. Chen Feng leaned against a big tree and sat down to rest. Soundlessly, he hid the reagent bottle earlier into the shrub behind him and buried it with the sand. Up until now, a total of 48 points of luck value were exhausted. Done. Chen Feng was inwardly excited as he finally felt relieved. Do you see? This is the power of a school. Xuf smiled toward Chen Feng. And this is only a high school. At a university, it is even scarier. All those senior students, counselors, teachers, professors, as long as you touch one of them, a whole group of them will appear. Although their internal competition is intense, they are still united against outsiders. What does that have to do with me? Chen Feng stretched lazily. Don't you regret failing the entrance examinations? Xuf smiled faintly. What if I didn't fail? Becoming the same type of people as them. Chen Feng pointed toward the students in the sea. Xuf and the rest deeply agreed. True. it is important to increase one's strength. However, the Gold City High School evidently neglected the most important point, moral character. Based on the students' dispositions, when they graduate in the future and enter the society, even if they are strong, they will still be toyed with to death by others. That female student is not bad. Ziling suddenly winked at Chen Feng. Chen Feng followed her gaze and, with astonishment, saw that it was Su Jin, the only student that had not entered the sea to search for the reagent. Xif wrapped his arms around Chen Feng's shoulder and obscenely said, "Not having a chance to enter a university, it wouldn't be too bad to enter a university student." Scram! Chen Feng said resolutely in contempt. After a few near-death crises, everyone was now closer to each other. However, this also helped Chen Feng clearly see the nature of this person. He was a wretched pervert through and through. No wonder Ziling would always stand up to him every now and then. As for Su Jin, Chen Feng had never really thought about it. This type of lady was somewhat unacceptable for him. As they were talking among each other, suddenly, the burning cloud in the skies jolted and scattered. Two silhouettes emerged from it, Wang Yao and Zhu Wenwu. It ended. Everyone looked toward both of them and was immediately stunned. It could be distinctly seen that the big sword in Wang Yao's hands was partly broken. It appeared to have been forcefully broken by someone. Her tiny face was deathly pale from anger as she stared at Zhu Wenwu in front of her. However, Zhu Wenwu's condition seemed even worse than hers. Although there were no wounds on him, half of his beard had been burnt away. "Little girl, if we continue fighting, I'm afraid there will be some other people arriving." Zhu Wenwu smiled bitterly. "Hmph." Wang Yao sneered. "I will kill however many come." "Is this proper?" Zhu Wenwu smiled bitterly. "Your family's old Wang and I can be considered acquaintances. Why don't we find the sea dragon blood essence first before we go back and slowly discuss the matter of distribution?" "Fine." Wang Yao pondered and put her sword away. Zhu Wenwu shook his head as he smiled bitterly. The young generations nowadays were getting more terrifying. "Have you found it yet?" Zhu Wenwu looked toward the teachers. "No." Everyone was ashamed. "No?" Zhu Wenwu frowned. "Increase your speed. Try to get it before others arrive. There's no need to be so troublesome." Wang Yao sneered. Bang! Endless flames started to emerge. The broken sword in Wang Yao's hand was stabbed into the seawater. Whoosh! A powerful force started shaking the sea and the seawater started boiling. Under the terrifying high temperature, it became vapor. The water level of the whole sea was declining at a frightening high speed. Hiss! Everyone else inhaled a breath of cold air. This little girl was actually planning to evaporate the whole sea. Damn! Xif opened his mouth wide, not closing it even after a long time. Chen Feng's expression changed slightly as well. However, his change was not due to being shocked by Wang Yao's strength. It was due to him suddenly thinking, if she found out that the item had been hidden by him. The corner of Chen Feng's mouth twitched. Those students that had helped the teachers to search for the sea dragon blood essence were dripping wet with cold sweat. They were all terrified that Wang Yao would find them not pleasing to the eyes and evaporate them as well. Thus, under everyone's watch, Wang Yao forcefully evaporated the whole sea. That place became a piece of barren land. However, there was nothing inside. Where's the sea dragon blood essence? Wang Yao's killing intent was bubbling up. All the seawater disappeared, yet the sea dragon blood essence had disappeared as well. Zhu Wenwu's heart leapt as well and he coldly said, "Whoever found the sea dragon blood essence, you better hand it over. There are some things that the likes of you can't lay your hands on." "We really didn't." Everyone smiled bitterly. Hmph. Zhu Wenwu sneered. Although he did not possess a tyrannical power like what Wang Yao had, his foundations were much thicker than Wang Yao's. His frightening spiritual power started sweeping through everyone's body. However, nothing was found. Wang Yao also started to search them one by one. Yet the sea dragon blood essence was still nowhere to be found. "Old man, you actually dare to play tricks on me?" Wang Yao pointed at Zhu Wenwu, certain that it was this old man that had let those teachers secretly move it away after finding it. "It really isn't me." Zhu Wenwu's face was ashen. "Not one person left this place just now. There's also nothing with a teleportation ability here. If there was, you would have most certainly sensed it." Hmph. Wang Yao snorted coldly. The sea dragon blood essence disappeared just like that under the eyes of two powerful genetic warriors. Everyone was searched, including Chen Feng's group that had not entered the sea. However, the sea dragon blood essence was still nowhere to be found. Would it be related to those fellows? Zhu Wenwu suddenly thought of something. Since they are the one who arranged all this, they might have some hidden methods. When you severed that guy's arm earlier, If they utilized some method to fuse some blood into the sea dragon blood essence and controlled it in the dark, it really might have disappeared from here. Damn it, Wang Yao pondered. There really was such a possibility. Seems like we need to go get an explanation from them. Zhu Wenwu sneered. To harm so many of my students. If they don't pay any price, they will not know how precious my Gold City High School's students are. Wang Yao looked at him coldly. Neither of them trusted each other. However, under such circumstances, there was no other choice. After a long time, everyone was finally allowed to leave after another round of inspection. Found? Wang Yao looked at Wang. No. Wang said obediently. Trash, Wang Yao said without a trace of politeness. Wang lowered his head, not even daring to speak back. Everyone started leaving in succession. As Chen Feng and Xuf's group were about to leave, Wang Yao suddenly opened her mouth. Chen Feng, come over. Chen Feng's body froze as he had a bad feeling inside. Had he been found out? Xuf and his group looked at Chen Feng in amazement, as they recalled how Chen Feng said he had the confidence to survive this. They were immediately shocked. Chen Feng actually knew this little girl. This expert with terrifying strength. Go. Xuf patted Chen Feng's shoulders. Chen Feng smiled unnaturally, his body somewhat stiff. What's the matter? Xuf saw Chen Feng's unnatural reaction and said in amazement, both of you won't really have some relationship, right? Chen Feng's expression became even more unnatural. Him snatching the sea dragon blood essence, it was not something as simple as them having a relationship. They were totally enemies with great enmity. Shit. There really is a relationship. Xuf's original expression of ridicule became solemn suddenly and he looked at Chen Feng seriously. Brother, let me tell you. Although this person is very strong, however, her age is very young. Don't blame me for not reminding you as a brother. At most, you should start with a 3 years gap. Scram. Chen Feng's face darkened. However, before Chen Feng made his move, a sharp gaze swept through, and as Xuf's expression changed greatly, a fireball suddenly descended from the sky. Who? As the flame flickered, the handsome hairstyle of Xuf was burnt clean. My hair. Xuf had a stupefied expression on his face. As he rubbed his head, a pile of ashes dropped down. Who told you to keep blabbering on? Zilling and the rest held their laughter and forcefully dragged the stunned Xuf away. Chen Feng's mouth twitched as he moved carefully to Wang Yao. Say it. Wang Yao kicked Wang. Thank you. Wang stared at Chen Feng as he squeezed those words out through his gnashing teeth. There's no need. Chen Feng was immediately relieved. The debt was settled. Wang Yao stated faintly. Understood. Chen Feng smiled bitterly. This fellow did not give him any face at all. Her mindset was simple. In other words, he had saved Wang once, and subsequently she had saved Chen Feng once. So their debt was considered to be settled. Nobody owed the other anything. Chen Feng smiled. As he prepared to leave, Wang Yao suddenly opened her mouth. Is the sea dragon blood essence on you? Whoosh. Chen Feng's heart leapt, almost choking himself. How is that possible? Chen Feng said in a dull voice, I didn't even enter the sea. True. Wang Yao recalled and stopped questioning him. Goodbye it is. Then Chen Feng nodded his head in greeting before leaving calmly. Nobody knew that as he left the place, his whole body was filled with cold sweat, drenching all the clothes on him. The eyes of this little girl were capable of causing one's heart to palpitate. Chen Feng even thought that he had been found out. Why did you force me to thank him? Wang said fiercely. He must have found out that you were here. That's why he saved me. It should be him thanking us instead. HMPH. Wang Yao glared at him. If not for him fighting at the front lines, the sea dragon blood essence and the mastermind would not have appeared. However, the disappearance of the sea dragon blood essence. As she saw that Wang was still glaring at Chen Feng, she softly said, in the future, don't provoke him. A mere beginner producer. Do I need to be afraid of him? Wang could not accept it. Wang Yao shook her head. This Chen Feng is not so simple. Apart from having good luck, what else could he have? Wang sneered. I won't stupidly go and provoke him now. But in the future, when I have improved myself, he will be nothing but a wild dog under my legs. Wang Yao's tiny face was solemn as she no longer opened her mouth. Chen Feng, looking at that slowly disappearing silhouette, she sank into contemplation. Returning home, Chen Feng was only truly relieved the moment he entered his rented house. Finally safe. He had never expected that an ordinary mission would escalate into such a situation. Barely escaping death, he almost wasn't able to return anymore. Long Yi, the headmaster, Wang Yao, all of them possessed strength far surpassing Chen Feng's. Every single step he took was full of crises. A single mistake would have cost him his life. It was still due to my strength being too weak. Chen Feng grasped his fist. Become strong. I need to become strong. In this age, only by becoming an expert will I be able to stand proud. However, the higher the risk, the higher the return. Chen Feng had profited greatly from this trip. First, what excited him the most was the fact that the sea dragon blood essence was finally in his hands, able to cause even the old headmaster to fight over it without a sense of shame. It could be seen how valuable this thing was. He only needed to wait for this incident to calm down first before secretly retrieving the sea dragon blood essence. That would be his biggest harvest. Second, his gene search capability had greatly increased. Due to him continuously staying in the digitized mode, removing high difficulty restrictions and the endless amount of spiritual energy recovery reagents, Chen Feng's current gene search speed was a few times faster than his previous speed. This increase would prove to be a great assistance to Chen Feng in his gene production. Lastly, Chen Feng's main target for this mission, the 5-star formula. After the mission, this 5-star formula finally fell into Chen Feng's hands. Although he had yet to take a look at it, he trusted Xuf not to scam him. Let's take a look at this 5-star formula. Chen Feng played with the chip in his hand. That's right. The information of a 5-star formula would normally be compressed within a chip. This was also the regular storage medium used in transactions. Chen Feng inserted the chip into his wristband. Whoosh! A frightening amount of information rushed madly into the wristband. After a long time, the 5-star formula's information appeared in his personal storage. The chip, on the other hand, produced a crisp sound before burning itself. Gold Ant Gene Formula. Difficulty level: 5 stars. Type: Special. Function: Permanent increase of spirit by 10 to 20 points. Limitation: F-class genetic warrior, only able to use once. Introduction: With Savage Desert Ant's blood essence as the core, forms a special gene reagent by refining the blood essence with all sorts of valuable materials. 5 stars. It was really 5 stars. Chen Feng's lips and tongue felt dry. The day spent dancing in the cradle of death was not wasted. With this formula and the formula gifted by the Genetic Production Association, Chen Feng's original goal of 20-star rating, which had seemed so far away, was suddenly half-reached. As long as he mastered these two formulas, he would be rated 10 stars. Chen Feng was inwardly excited. There's also a major point that should not be ignored, which was the function of this formula. 20 points of spiritual energy. Chen Feng finally knew why that Wang's spiritual energy had rapidly increased immediately after graduation, to the point of surpassing him. He must have used a similar gene reagent. These rich children of influential families walked a completely different path than others. However, Chen Feng was not unduly humbled. Since these rich children all improved themselves this way, this item must be quite expensive. Chen Feng's eyes shined brightly. As he searched for information on the gold ant gene, he found that the cost of the materials were 150,000 yuan, while the average transaction price was 200,000 yuan. This price, Chen Feng felt powerless to even criticize it. What a scam. Huge scam. For a normal gene producer, this was akin to a heavenly scam. Even though Chen Feng's production level had increased, he still felt that this 5-star formula was a heavenly scam. If one were to rush their level to intermediate level producer with this kind of 5-star formula, he would suffer great losses. High cost, high difficulty level, yet such low profit. It was not even enough to cover the costs of materials for the failed productions. However, for Chen Feng, this was the most suitable formula instead. Due to the existence of the luck aura, he walked a path that was totally illogical for a normal person. Making a loss, it was non-existent. Chen Feng searched but noted that the amount of available gold ant formulas in the business district was low. There was no choice. The production difficulty was too high. Those able to produce these kinds of formulas were mostly intermediate producers or even higher-level producers. When these people produced a gold ant formula, they were probably researching its composition. Making money, they only needed to sell some high-level genes. This was Chen Feng's opportunity. No marketing required, no discount required. As long as he put it up for sale, it would definitely sell. Then, let's produce one to start with. Chen Feng was filled with fighting spirit. However, right as he started his research, Chen Feng found a grave problem. The core material required for production of gold ant gene, the blood essence of savage desert ant, was not sold at the stores at the virtual community. Could this be an extinct mutated beast? Chen Feng's heart leapt. As he hastily researched, he finally found where the problem lay. Not all blood essence was able to be preserved. There was some blood essence that would lose its genetic energy in a short time after leaving the mutated beast's body. This was especially true for spirit-type beasts. The blood essence of the savage desert ant was one of them, only having a shelf life of 3 days. Wanting to get his hands on this type of blood essence, there were only 2 options: hunt the beasts personally or hire someone to hunt them. This is somewhat troublesome. Chen Feng frowned. He did not want to waste too much time on gathering materials, as he recalled that the savage desert ant was not a particularly formidable species of mutated beast. Chen Feng contacted Xif directly, wanting to know if they had any free time. However, unexpectedly, Chen Feng kept getting a busy signal from Xif. He did not know what they were busy with. Seems like I have to handle this myself. Chen Feng shook his head. He started going through the information on the savage desert ant. This was a type of E-class mutated beast, originating from the Black Cloud continent, one of the mutations of giant termite. Possessing powerful spiritual energy, it was very dangerous. Black Cloud continent. Chen Feng pondered. He did not want to waste too much time on this. Before increasing his strength, Chen Feng was very clear on his position: a beginner producer. He would normally not get involved in anything involving combat, at least on the surface. This was the appearance he maintained. However, if it was only gathering blood essence, it's not like there's no way. Chen Feng made his decision quickly. However, he did not go out the same day. In order to get the sea dragon blood essence, he almost exhausted all of his luck value. Now he needed to wait for the luck value to recover to a certain extent before he dared to leave his house. There was no choice. He was too weak. Before becoming a true expert, he had to remain cautious. Outside of his expectations, on that night, he was contacted by the Gene Production Association. "Good day, Mr. Chen." In front of him was the voice of a gentle-sounding woman. "I am a staff member of the Gene Production Association. Recently, we detected some outsiders trying to gather information about you. Our guess is that, in the near future, there will be someone acting unfavorably against you. Please take note," the staff member said softly. "Thanks." Chen Feng expressed his gratitude. However, his first reaction was thinking that this was a scam call before subsequently recalling that there were not many people with the guts to impersonate the Gene Production Association when performing a scam call. At that, he frowned and calmly asked, "Do all the producers get the same treatment from the association?" "No," the staff member answered straightforwardly. "The association places different levels of attention on different producers. Although you are not at this level yet, Senior Jiang Wei requested we pay more attention on you." So this was the case. Chen Feng laughed involuntarily. "Jiang Wei, eh? Seems like I need to thank him in the future. However, who was it that wanted to investigate me? Wang Yao? Improbable." Chen Feng shook his head. They knew his circumstances very well, so there was no need for them to investigate him. He racked his brains yet still failed to recall whose attention he had caught recently. Who could it be? Chen Feng muttered silently. Contrary to what one might expect, Chen Feng wasn't scared of anyone acting against him. In this world, what he feared the least was assassination. With luck or the threat an assassination posed to him was instead the lowest. What he was afraid of was meeting those with powerful strength and strong background like Long Yi. That was what he would consider a true impasse. Long Yi. Chen Feng suddenly recalled something. The reason the opponent investigated him might not only be to assassinate him. How about other reasons, such as the Sea Dragon blood essence incident? This was what he was most afraid of. "Seems like I need to watch my back for now." Chen Feng was in a solemn mood. Although the Sea Dragon blood essence had been buried, if he wanted to get his hands on it, he still needed to wait for some time. During this period of time, he must not be discovered, or else only death awaited him. Late at night, Chen Feng was looking at the glittering lights of the city as he contemplated. "Seems like some changes are required for the plan tomorrow." Gold City. Under the shadows of the lights of the flourishing city, at a certain dimly lit corner, 3 silhouettes were huddled together, carefully discussing something. Number 2, how goes the investigation? The target is recently researching the Black Cloud continent and savage desert ants. After looking into it, I found that this beast's blood essence can't be preserved for a long period of time. If the target really wants this thing, He needs to make a trip to Black Cloud Continent. We can follow after him and get rid of him in the dark. Is the information accurate? Accurate. I spent a huge sum to get a hacker to verify the information. Both Production Association and Chen Feng's site have been checked. There's no mistake. That's good, then. Number 3. Get ready. MHM. The voices gradually stopped as the three silhouettes submerged into the darkness of night. Early morning the next day, the three brothers reached Black Cloud Continent. Riding on the fastest iron cloud, they only spent 1 hour to reach Black Cloud Continent and entered one of the camps in the vicinity of the place where savage desert ants commonly appeared. In order to help the explorers better complete their missions, the Genetic Union had set up camps near cities and also at the furthest reachable regions. In the camps, personal fights were banned. Everything in the camps was monitored. There were even specially built combat robots guarding the camps, making the camps the best rest stop for explorers. The three of them reached the camp under the scorching sun. The sun shined upon the whole camp. Under the reflection of layers of glass, it gave off a bizarre sense of beauty. However, the majority of the people here did not have the time to appreciate the beauty. Is Chen Feng here yet? The boss asked. MHM, he has gotten on the iron cloud and will arrive in roughly 1 hour, said number 2 as he looked at the information received on his wristband. Very good. Satisfied, the boss said, our plan is very simple. His target is to hunt savage desert ants. We only need to pretend to be passers-by. When he is hunting the savage desert ants, we will make our move secretly. This way, we can definitely get rid of him easily. He might hire others as well. Number 3 said in a low voice, Chen Feng is only a producer. If he wants to hunt savage desert ants, he will definitely hire 2 E-class warriors. That is expected. Boss nodded slightly. Regardless of if it's 2 or 3, the enemy is out there in the open while we are hidden in the dark. This is our advantage. Our target is only Chen Feng. We can ignore others and escape the moment we kill him. Don't forget, we also have that thing. Number 2 and 3 couldn't help but to nod. True. With that thing, even if he hired a few E-class warriors, he still needs to die. 1 hour later, Chen Feng was preparing for his arrival at Black Cloud Continent. He will be here soon, number 2 said in a low voice. Let's go. Boss ordered decisively. It will be too obvious for us to tail him. We need to reach the first. MHM. The three of them reached the area where savage desert ants commonly appeared in advance. They were waiting for something. Sure enough, after less than half an hour, people started appearing at the normally deserted savage desert ant territory. In order to not appear suspicious, the three of them found a savage desert ant and proceeded to kill it. However, what exceeded their expectations was that the savage desert ant hunting team did not have Chen Feng in it. Are you sure? Yes. That group of 3 does not have Chen Feng in it. How could this be? Boss felt somewhat doubtful. Is it just a normal team that is coincidentally here to hunt savage desert ants as well? Soon, other silhouettes started appearing in the distance. Someone is here. Boss felt invigorated. This time, it should be Chen Feng. Hence, they hunted down another savage desert ant to disguise themselves. However, as those people neared, they somewhat blanked as they noticed that the people that came were not Chen Feng either. Chen Feng was still nowhere to be seen. Savage desert ants were not that easy to kill. Only after a long time did they manage to tire the ant to death. After that, the other hunting team started leaving gradually. What happened? The 3 of them were wondering why Chen Feng was not there yet. Do you think that Chen Feng had noticed us? Number 3 thought a bit. Is it possible that he deliberately got these people to come here and confuse us? That might be the case. Boss shivered. Wait. Chen Feng is definitely hidden within one of the teams. He deliberately let other teams come and create chaos in order to confuse us. Subsequently, he will hide himself among one of the teams and make his move for real. He will definitely appear. Boss was sure. However, the next few hours, they started seeing people coming in succession to hunt savage desert ants. Yet Chen Feng was still nowhere to be seen. 1 time, 2 times. The whole morning passed just like that, yet they didn't even catch a glimpse of Chen Feng. If it wasn't for number 2 being sure that Chen Feng was still in Black Cloud Continent, they would probably have thought that Chen Feng had left. Something is wrong. Number 3 had an unsightly expression. Do I need you to tell me this? Boss sneered. After thinking for a long time, he slapped his thigh. Let's go to the camp and see what the situation is. All right. The 3 of them returned to the camp. However, somewhat exceeding their expectations, a long line had formed in the camp. A lot of people were surrounding that spot. causing others to be unable to see what was happening inside. Number 3. Go take a look, boss signaled with his eyes. Understood. With a resolute expression, Number 3 rushed into the crowd. 10 minutes later, he squeezed out of the crowd with a stupefied expression on his face and a big pile of cash in his embrace. What's the situation? Boss asked hastily. Someone is giving out money? No. Number 3 had a disbelieving expression on his face. You go take a look and you will know. Trash. Boss glared at him. Number 2, you go take a look. Alright. Number 2 looked at Number 3 in contempt and, as Number 3 had done earlier, he squeezed into the crowd, full of fighting spirit. He squeezed out 10 minutes later as well, looking somewhat wretched, and on his face was the same stupefied expression, and in his embrace was also a pile of cash. Number 2? Boss asked. Number 2 had the same expression of disbelief on his face, to the point where he was almost crying. I can't explain it clearly. Boss, you will know after going over to take a look. HMPH. Boss sneered. Let me see what trick they are playing. Scram. Boss squeezed overbearingly into the crowd. The people around looked at him and frowned. However, after thinking about it, even if he entered, he might not be selected anyway. Hence, they did not say anything and allowed Boss to squeeze into the center of the crowd. Next, Boss saw a person who shocked him to his core, Chen Feng. That's right, the one surrounded by the crowd was actually Chen Feng. What's the situation? Boss's heart leapt as he felt something was amiss. At this time, Chen Feng seemed to have noticed him and waved his hand. You. Yes, you. Sighing voices started echoing around him. The boss walked in front of Chen Feng without a change in his expression as he readied the dagger in his hands. However, as he saw the combat robot in the distance that had locked onto him, he quietly gave up his plan. Here, it was impossible to kill Chen Feng. Take your savage desert ant's blood essence out, Chen Feng said indifferently. Boss's heart leapt. How did this fellow knew about the savage desert ant's blood essence on him? Had those bastards, Number 2 and Number 3, betrayed him? As he was about to say something, he noticed that the people nearby had surrounded him with gazes filled with killing intent, causing Boss to hastily hand over the blood essence he had obtained earlier. The purity is not bad. Chen Feng took a look and offered his price. Nuo, your money. Chen Feng grabbed a pile of cash and threw it to Boss and yelled to the crowd, next. Let me say again, only accepting those with the best purity. Buying with high price. Those with bad purity need not come. Mine is good. Mine is better. Newly acquired. Definitely meets your standards. Countless people started competing just like this, with a pile of cash in his embrace, and a stupefied expression on his face. The boss was squeezed out of the crowd. Only when he was finally squeezed out of the crowd did his mind register what had happened. Chen Feng was actually buying savage desert ant's blood essence here. He never planned to go out. Assassinate. The opponent never thought of giving you a chance at all. The most lamentable fact was that the blood essence they had gotten from their hunt since early morning was sold just like this to Chen Feng. The genes hunted by them were actually those with the best purity. All of them were selected by Chen Feng. So after being busy for the whole morning, they were actually working for Chen Feng. As this crossed his mind, Boss was totally stupefied. At this moment, he finally knew why Number 2 and 3 had this expression on their faces. What should we do? Boss was bewildered. Perhaps Chen Feng will still come out, they guessed. However, one day passed just like this. As it was getting late, Chen Feng got on Ironclad and returned to Gold City. The three of them followed Chen Feng back with a puzzled expression. Disguise? Was there still a need for that? Even if they returned to Gold City, they would not be able to get any chances. That night, at the same corner, the three silhouettes were seated on the ground with stupefied expressions on their face, asking why things had turned out like this. They performed a lot of missions before, and their targets were also the likes of beginner producers and F-class genetic warriors. However, someone as terrifying as Chen Feng. It was unprecedented. From the start till the end, the opponent was always in a safe zone. What could you do in that situation? He won't stay at supervised areas forever, right? Number 2 was full of despair. Who knows? Number 3 muttered. Let it be. Let's look for other opportunities. Boss clenched his teeth. There's still some time left before the mission's deadline. Don't be anxious and give up first, in case he really does leave the safe zones. In case. A sigh could be heard. The three silhouettes disappeared into the dark of night. Currently, within a rented house at Gold City, Chen Feng was feeling very satisfied as he looked at the materials he had gathered. 30 sets of Savage Desert Ants blood essence that contained the best genes, which he had personally picked. This was how he had collected the Savage Desert Ants blood essence. Bringing along a huge pile of cash to purchase would always appear more attractive compared to purchasing with fund transfers. And I still need to thank those 3 idiots. Chen Feng smiled calmly. Since he had received news about it beforehand, how could he miss the 3 of them? They had put so much effort into it. Unfortunately, they had chosen the wrong opponent. A single gold ant gene reagent requires 10 sets of Savage Desert Ants blood essence. Chen Feng calculated and noted that all the money he had saved recently was only sufficient for him to produce 3 sets of the reagent. The cost is somewhat high. Chen Feng's head was aching somewhat. However, he had no other options. This was something he had to do. A gene producer was originally a profession where one invested greatly during the early stages before reaping huge profits in the late stages. As such, an outstanding gene producer was incomparably valuable. Let's produce one first. Chen Feng made up his mind. Putting his thought into action immediately, he started researching all the information related to the gold ant gene and spent 2 whole days before he managed to grasp all the information and collect all the required materials. This was especially true for the incubator liquid required during the 3rd step, the gene fusion step. A countless number of valuable materials needed to be allocated for this, and there was no space for mishaps. It was very hard to produce a gold ant gene. Although Chen Feng's gene production level had increased greatly, if he were to forcefully produce this kind of 5-star formula, the success rate would be a pathetic 1%. Luckily, he possessed the luck aura. I can start now. Chen Feng inhaled deeply. Start. Whoosh. Lights swirled as Chen Feng entered the digitized mode. Similar to the Thunder Snake gene, the gold ant gene's production was very hard as well. No less than 300 strains of genes needed to be collected during the gene search step. Even with the luck aura activated, Chen Feng almost failed. The gene search process of an F-class formula alone had already in itself matched the difficulty of the restrictions Xf brought during the interview. Worthy of being a 5-star formula indeed. Luckily, after the exploration trip with Xf, Chen Feng's gene search ability had improved greatly. He managed to forcefully complete the gene search process in the end. When producing a normal gene, Chen Feng was not worried at all during the 1st and 2nd steps. He only needed to consume 1 point of luck value for the gene fusion step and the reagent would be easily completed. However, when producing these high-difficulty genes, even during the initial 2 steps, Chen Feng did not dare to relax the slightest bit. 1st step, gene search, completion. Luck value exhausted by 1 point. 2nd step, gene reaction, completion. Luck value exhausted by 1 point. The catalyzed reaction for the 300 strains of genes gave Chen Feng a headache. Luckily, Chen Feng had improved rapidly nowadays. As such, he managed to complete all the reactions without any mishaps. 3rd step, gene fusion, completion. Luck value exhausted by 1 point. The crux for producing special genes was the preparation of the incubator liquid. The moment the lone gene started to duplicate itself in the incubator liquid was the moment the gold ant gene's production completed. Gene name, gold ant gene. Gene type, special. Gene function, triggering the potential in one's body, permanently increase one's spiritual energy by 20 points. Gene introduction, with Savage Desert Ants blood essence as the core, forming a special gene reagent by refining the blood essence with all sorts of valuable materials. Success. Chen Feng was excited. This was the first 5-star difficulty reagent he had produced. A peak attribute gold ant gene reagent. As long as he could sell more of them, reaching a 20-star rating wouldn't be a problem. However, Chen Feng quickly calmed down from his excitement. This was a peak attribute gene reagent, yet there was still no mutation. Still no mutation? Chen Feng was made aware of an issue. Thunder Snake gene had no mutation. Gold Ant gene had no mutation either. Was it due to the mutation being too hard to achieve? Or was it due to these formulas with high star ratings not having a mutation at all? Chen Feng was somewhat anxious. His advantage that enabled him to far exceed others was his ability to uncover the unknown potential of genes, regardless of the probability. Hence, he was always looking forward to the arrival of his second mutated gene. However, it had not appeared. The Thunder Snake gene and Gold Ant gene did not even have a normal mutation. Hence, there was no need to mention the concealed genes with an unknown probability. It did not exist at all. Mutated genes were, after all, the minority among so many genes. Is there really no mutation? Chen Feng searched about it online and was immensely disappointed. Perhaps it was really a coincidence for him to be the first person to discover the mutated lumber bear gene. From now on, he would be the same as ordinary producers. For some reason, Chen Feng could not be satisfied with this. After enjoying the benefits fame brought, however small that fame it was, Chen Feng was somewhat dissatisfied. Am I like Professor Tao now? Chen Feng laughed involuntarily. Soon, he recalled something. How was a gene formula found? It was something found through countless attempts of the previous generations, a result of non-stop experiments, something that was successfully created after the research and improvement of countless people. Since a formula was a research result in itself, did it mean that there might be some fault in the research itself? For example, mutated lumber bear gene. Perhaps there was a problem in the formula itself. Chen Feng's lips and tongue felt dry. As a newbie producer, he was questioning the predecessors. It was not due to the predecessors being incapable. Rather, it was because, if there were certain aspects with an extremely low appearance probability, their formula might not be able to discover that thing as well. If that's the case, does that mean I can improve the formulas? Chen Feng's eyes were burning. This was the first time he felt the madness within him. Let's try. Chen Feng followed the wishes of his burning heart. Since the thought surfaced, he had to try. However, how should he get started? Formula improvement. Chen Feng sank into contemplation. He was already familiar with the 3 steps of gene production. If modifications were required, then naturally, all 3 steps needed to be modified as well. Chen Feng busied himself for 2 days before he was done with his preparations. First step, gene search. Bang! The light before his eyes cracked as Chen Feng entered the digitized mode. In the past, every time Chen Feng performed gene search, he merely activated the luck aura and grabbed whatever genes he laid his eyes on, stopping as soon as the amount was sufficient. This was because he knew that the genes he caught were the most suitable genes. However, was the quantity required correct? What if the required amount of the improved formula was not 300 genes, or the type of requirements for the formula itself was different altogether? Then, Chen Feng slowly closed his eyes. Using his spiritual energy, he blocked all his senses, blocked everything, entering a peculiar digitized world. This world was enveloped in darkness. He couldn't see anything, yet he could feel it. Whoosh! Chen Feng started casually grabbing genes, not caring about the type and quantity, grabbing everything in front of him just like that. However many he caught would be totally dependent on luck. This was Chen Feng's strongest production mode. Chen Feng named this hyperdimensional mode. His plan was simple: to complete the formula transformation under this peculiar mode. The strongest gene. I must create the strongest gene. Chen Feng started chanting in his heart. With Chen Feng's willpower as the foundation, luck aura began operating. A certain mysterious power started to operate furiously while Chen Feng's luck value started to slowly decline. It began 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. It only stopped upon reaching 5 points. As luck values were not being exhausted anymore, Chen Feng was clear that the gene search step must have been completed at that point. Opening his eyes, Chen Feng's heart leapt. Indeed, 560 strains of genes. Compared to the previous 300 strains, even the gene types were totally different. This was something selected automatically by the luck aura. First step completed. Very good. Chen Feng inhaled deeply. As long as it's working, it's good. Then, let's get started with the second step. Gene reaction. Whoosh! Chen Feng closed his eyes. He had to maintain this mode, since if his eyes were opened, he would definitely be distracted by these genes, getting himself influenced by the familiar genes. Whoosh! The sequence of gene reactions was in disorder. Chen Feng conveniently grabbed one gene after another and started the gene reaction process. Reaction. One after another, they started reacting. Chen Feng did not care about the sequence anymore. This step was obviously the hardest. Chen Feng's luck value was declining crazily at a frightening speed. When Chen Feng finally completed all the gene reactions, he had consumed 10 points of luck value. An extremely terrifying number. Done. Second step, completed. Chen Feng did not dare to open his eyes. He knew that the second step of gene reaction was complete. That special mutated gene might have really been produced by him. What was left was the third step, gene fusion. As long as the fusion was successful, it might give birth to this strongest gene. However, this was the most troublesome step. Not only the duplication of the gene, the crux was that the incubator liquid required for the duplication was something he did not have at all. He needed to use the available materials and prepare an incubator liquid capable of supporting the duplication of the mutated gene. This was an unknown gene and an unknown incubator liquid. If he wanted to complete it, he could only depend on luck aura. As Chen Feng prepared to continue, he suddenly felt a pang of dizziness. Chen Feng felt ringing in his ears as he felt that the whole world was suddenly enveloped in darkness. As he accidentally looked out the window toward the sun, he found that the sun actually appeared green. What happened? Chen Feng blanked for a long time. Only after 2 full minutes did Chen Feng wake up to find that his spiritual energy had emptied at an unknown time. On his status window, under the spiritual energy section, a red-colored 0 was shown. I used up all my spiritual energy. Chen Feng smiled bitterly. He had only completed the first 2 simpler steps and hadn't even gotten started on the most troublesome third step. The dependence of gene production on spiritual energy far exceeded Chen Feng's imagination. He was sure that he had touched upon the realm of the strongest gene earlier. That improved formula, that gene that was perfectly produced by luck aura, was an absolutely epic improvement. If he could really produce that gene, an unimaginable harvest could definitely be reaped. However, spiritual energy. Have I been focused on the wrong thing? Chen Feng inhaled deeply. Spiritual energy was the foundation of gene production. Under normal circumstances, those with spiritual energy at the level of Chen Feng's would normally only dare to engage in the research of ordinary genes. Due to Chen Feng having the assistance of luck aura, he had been progressing smoothly, to the point where he could even deal with the 4-star Thunder Snake gene and 5-star Gold Ant gene. Hence, he had almost forgotten that there was such a thing as spiritual energy exhaustion. Lumber Bear gene production consumed 1 point of spiritual energy. Thunder Snake gene production consumed 10 points of spiritual energy. Gold Ant gene production consumed 20 points spiritual energy. And to improve the Gold Ant gene formula, based on Chen Feng's estimations, without spiritual energy above 90 points, it was impossible to succeed. The reality was, he only had 32 points of spiritual energy. My foundations are too weak. Chen Feng could only smile bitterly. However, it was about time for him to improve this aspect of him. The increase of spiritual energy greatly benefited both gene production and one's strength. Furthermore, increasing spiritual energy would not delay too much of Chen Feng's time. On the contrary, after the increase, the speed in which Chen Feng could master a formula might even increase. Let's try. Chen Feng decided. Spiritual energy. After pondering for a bit, Chen Feng took out the Gold Ant gene reagent that he had produced earlier, triggering the potential in one's body, permanently increasing one's spiritual energy by 20 points. Based on his understanding, these types of special reagents that permanently increased one's attributes could only be used once every class. Regardless of the attribute improved, as long as it was used, it couldn't be used anymore. Otherwise, with excessive gene intake, one's spirit would be broken apart. He had originally planned to sell it, but now, Chen Feng checked online and noticed that, currently, only 3 types of spirit-increasing reagents were available in the whole business district. Each of them was extremely expensive. Demonic Hair Gene Reagent, permanent increase of spiritual energy by 8 points, priced at 80,000. Azure Bat Gene Reagent, permanent increase of spiritual energy by 10 points, priced at 100,000. Cracked Wing Gene Reagent, permanent increase of spiritual energy by 13 points, priced at 150,000. The best of them only increases by 13 points. Chen Feng sank into contemplation. Spiritual energy was the foundation for gene production. Since he intended to increase his spiritual energy, he had to use the best. The Gold Ant gene he had produced was simply meant for him. Whoosh! Chen Feng used it immediately. His spirit started boiling. Chen Feng could feel that his state of mind had become nimbler. His eyes had become keener. His ears had become sharper, and the originally dried-up spiritual energy had also been refilled to the peak during this process. 52 points spiritual energy. Let's try. Chen Feng tried entering the digitized mode. Whoosh, whoosh. Regardless of the speed in which the digitized world was formed or the speed of gene search, both were faster than his previous speed. The speed of his gene production as a whole had increased by anifold. The formidable spiritual energy caused Chen Feng to have an all-around improvement. Even his wind blade was much larger in size than before. This is the benefit of having a powerful spirit. Chen Feng was shocked. He knew that the improvement that came along with an increase in spiritual energy was huge. However, he never expected it to reach such an extent. No wonder everyone said that spiritual energy was the foundation of gene production. Not only this, spiritual energy was also the foundation of spirit-type genetic warriors. Foundation. Chen Feng pondered for a bit before making up his mind. He had to increase his spiritual energy. There was no other reason. Currently, he was lacking in too many aspects. He lacked formula, lacked the funds to spam formulas, lacked spiritual energy, lacked combat power. It was too forceful for one to participate in the rookie competition so soon after graduation. If he failed during the competition due to a lack of spiritual energy, that would be too awkward. Hence, only a rapid increase of spiritual energy could give him an overall improvement in strength. Only then could he master 20 stars worth of formula faster. Naturally, there was also that strongest gene that was already within reach. The strongest gene produced after the improvement of a 5-star gene formula, what would it be? He was looking forward to it. He even had a premonition that if the strongest gene he produced was unprecedented in history, it would definitely bring him great benefits. Even the resources required to reach the 20-star rating would be covered. However, how should he increase his spiritual energy? In order to produce the strongest gene, at least 90 points of spiritual energy were required. Chen Feng was suddenly reminded of Wang. This fellow only had around 30 points of spiritual energy previously, even lower than him. However, only half a month after graduation, he improved greatly and reached 80 points. In other words, in this short period of half a month, Wang had increased his spiritual energy by 50 points. Even if he had passively grown his gene by 10 points and used the same peak attribute 5-star reagent, where did the remaining 20 points came from? Pure tempering? He absolutely could not believe that. There must be a faster method for increasing spiritual energy. Chen Feng was sure. At this moment, Chen Feng's wristband buzzed and Mu Yuan's image appeared. "How are you, Mu Yuan?" Chen Feng smiled calmly. "It's been a while." Mu Yuan looked at Chen Feng grudgingly. "I was waiting for your reply all this time. After your beginner producer certification, what formula did you choose? After asking me, you disappeared straight away. Have you ever taken the feelings of one who had been abandoned into consideration?" Chen Feng wiped his sweat. He did not expect Mu Yuan to have kept thinking about this until now. Mu Yuan couldn't help but to curiously ask, "So, what did you pick in the end?" He had been holding this question for many days. "Thunder Snake Gene," Chen Feng answered honestly. "Indeed." Mu Yuan's face froze and he disappointedly said, "This is what I was worried about." "Brother, how many times have I told you, don't choose a high-difficulty gene?" "You think these high-difficulty genes provided by the association are a benefit?" "They are a pitfall, brother." Mu Yuan was bitter and hateful. F-class high-star rating formulas are all useless. High cost yet low price. Due to the class being only F, if you were to sell it at a higher price, nobody would want it. Even if you spend a huge amount of funds to master this formula, you won't be able to earn much from it. How much of a loss is this? Do you know the reason for this? It's due to the supply exceeding the demand. When a gene producer wants to improve himself, a huge amount of low-level reagents will be produced. And F-class is a stage where improvement is the easiest for a genetic warrior. Those that did well would have upgraded to E-class or D-class long ago. Those that did not do well, how many of them can afford a 4-star or 5-star reagent? Right? F-class is totally something at the bottom tier of society. The real solid demand is on those high-level gene reagents. Those are the actual main consumption of the society as a whole. What you need to do is to increase your production level as fast as you can. Mu Yuan advised earnestly. Furthermore, based on your talent, the success rate of 1-star and 2-star gene production should be rather high. Right? Why do you need to touch those 4-star formulas? Although those high-rated formulas are somewhat powerful, the quality-to-price ratio is too low. There's also that success rate that is practically a scam. Chen Feng shrugged. But I have successfully produced it. What's the point of successfully producing it? Wait, what? Mu Yuan widened his eyes. You produced it? Chen Feng nodded. Ah! Mu Yuan cried out in alarm. How is that possible? That thing has an excessive difficulty level. I previously tried for 1 whole month yet still failed and ended up getting hung on a tree and beaten up by my dad. Mu Yuan suddenly realized what he had said and abruptly paused. At this time, through the screen, he saw Chen Feng's faint smile and started feeling awkward. Cough, cough. Back then, I was overconfident and chose the Thunder Snake gene. Hence, I did not want the same thing to happen to you as well. Unexpectedly, you are too formidable. Sigh, if I had your talent back then I would have been able to raise my head and be arrogant in front of that old man, Mu Yuan said, somewhat regretfully. Chen Feng laughed involuntarily. How much resentment did this fellow have toward his father? However, even if you produced it by fluke, I still don't recommend you continue using this gene to boost your level. Mu Yuan said in a low voice, let me tell you some inside news. These formulas with high star ratings were all left behind by the previous generation. With complicated material requirements, low success rate and low quality to price ratios, their research value is much higher than their practical value. I heard that the association is currently thinking of a way to either simplify or altogether cancel the usage of these formulas. Chen Feng did not comment on that. He was clear on Mu Yuan's meaning. A normal producer would pick a high amount of formulas with a high profit ratio to boost their growth, able to improve and make money at the same time. When they became an intermediate producer or an advanced producer, they would start raking in a much higher amount of profit. What a fulfilling life. This was also the proper choice most producers at the most basic level chose. Chen Feng had also experienced this with the lumber bear gene. With the cost of 4,000 yuan and the price of a peak attribute reagent at 10,000 yuan, it had a profit of 150%. After mutation, the price was 20,000, and the profit reached a rate of 500%. A lot of other popular F-class formulas had even higher rates of profit. However, was this what Chen Feng needed? Obviously not. Why had he chosen a high star rating formula to increase his star rating? Was the Thunder Snake gene formula profitable? It was not profitable. Was the Gold Ant gene formula profitable? It was not profitable. However, for Chen Feng, they were the most valuable formulas. He only needed to master these two formulas and his production level would have an increase of 9 stars. Using the same amount of luck value, one lumber bear gene formula could only increase his star rating by 1. Using it on the Gold Ant gene formula, he could increase his star rating by 5 instead. Why would he not do it? This was Chen Feng's thought process. A simpler manner of improvement. It was not due to this being the normal path one would take in this profession as a producer. It was due to the existence of luck aura, letting Chen Feng walk a completely different path than others. Chen Feng could only appreciate Mu Yuan's good intentions. Naturally, Chen Feng couldn't avoid thinking playfully within. One Thunder Snake gene is enough to scare you to such an extent. If you knew about the Gold Ant gene, would you go crazy? If you were to know that I am currently researching an even more terrifying 5-star mutated formula, the strongest F-class gene, would you pee your pants from the shock? Why do you have this expression on your face? Mu Yuan suddenly felt his hair stand on end. Nothing. Chen Feng recalled something important. Do you know how to increase spiritual energy? Through gene production, Mu Yuan stated confidently. For us gene producers, as long as we produce genes, our spiritual energy will increase. If you feel like the growth is too slow, you can temper your gene to a certain extent. Some high-difficulty training classes are also able to help with increasing spiritual energy. Chen Feng shook his head. I want a rapid increase method. He knew about those methods Mu Yuan had mentioned. Those were how producers normally improve themselves. For him, however, what he lacked the most was time. Rapid increase. Mu Yuan frowned. Let me think. Buy a permanent increase gene reagent? It's quite expensive though. I used it. Chen Feng rebuked firmly. I don't think there are any other methods. Mu Yuan suddenly recalled something and shook his head. For a gene producer, only these few methods are available. There's basically no other shortcuts. However, if it's a genetic warrior. Chen Feng's eyes lit up. Right. A gene producer is basically a spirit-type genetic warrior. Those pure genetic warriors can't produce any gene reagents. How do they increase their spiritual energy then? I don't know if I should tell you this. Mu Yuan smiled bitterly, hesitating for a bit before saying, do you know how genetic warriors increase their power? Through tempering? Chen Feng guessed. That's only one part of it. Mu Yuan inhaled. Apart from normal training and high difficulty drills, genetic warriors have another method that is faster yet more dangerous, gene strengthening. Gene strengthening? Chen Feng's eyes brightened. He seemed to have heard this term before. Yes, gene strengthening. Mu Yuan nodded. The so-called gene strengthening is a method where one kills the mutated beasts from the same species as the gene one fused and takes their genes for one's own use. For example, if you fused the lumber bear gene at F class, then you only need to kill a lumber bear that is stronger than you and absorb its gene into your body. This way, you will be able to strengthen your own lumber bear gene. Chen Feng was still somewhat confused. How to strengthen, kill, absorb, and fuse? Mu Yuan said forthrightly. Gene strengthening is different than gene refining. If you want to absorb a gene into your body and strengthen your own gene, you need to guarantee the gene's reactivity. In other words, you need to complete the gene strengthening process within a few minutes after killing the beast. Otherwise, the reactivity will disappear. So this is how it's done. Chen Feng thought about it. It doesn't seem too hard. For example, if he fused the lumber bear gene with 30 points of strength, he only needed to kill a lumber bear with strength higher than 30 points and absorb its gene into his own body to complete the strengthening. It seemed so simple. How was it as dangerous as Mu Yuan made it sound? Chen Feng suddenly thought of something. Is the attribute increase 100%? Of course not. Mu Yuan shook his head. You can treat gene strengthening as a mixture of two liquids with different concentration. In other words, if you kill a mutated beast with an attribute 2 points higher than yours, you will only obtain 1 point of the attribute. However, if some of the attributes are lower than yours, that attribute of yours will decrease. It's not a problem if the attribute increases. However, the moment an attribute decreases and your gene starts to degenerate, the harm it causes your body will be extremely huge. The consequences would be disastrous. Hiss. Chen Feng inhaled a breath of cold air. Decrease gene degeneration? He suddenly understood. In other words, in order to perform gene strengthening, one needed to kill a mutated beast whose attributes were all higher than one's own attributes for it to work. Otherwise, after killing the mutated beast with much difficulty and performing gene strengthening only to end up with a decreased attribute, wouldn't that be ridiculous? However, not only was it hard to find the mutated beast fulfilling this requirement, even if one were to be found, could it be defeated? A mutated beast with the exact same attribute as a human possessed much higher power than the human. Hence, it would definitely be stronger than the human. This was gene strengthening. Killing a mutated beast, absorbing its gene, fusing it with one's own gene, and completing the gene strengthening process to increase one's own attributes. This was the way in which genetic warriors increased their power. Simple yet cruel. Furthermore, it was dangerous. Hence, Mu Yuan said in a gloomy voice, the mortality rates of genetic warriors are extremely high. Understood. Chen Feng was enlightened. However, this leads to another question. If I were to find a few mutated beasts with 100 attribute points and kill them, wouldn't I reach the limits of F-class immediately? Chen Feng was still somewhat hopeful. If he were to fully unleash the power of Wind Blade, how is it that easy? Mu Yuan said straightforwardly. You think gene strengthening is really so easy to perform? The difficulty level of gene strengthening is directly related to both your body's endurance and your willpower. What the Genetic Union recommended for F-class was around 1 or 2 attribute points per increase. If it's too high, things will get dangerous. Chen Feng was curious. What kind of danger? How should I know? I'm not a genetic warrior. Mu Yuan rolled his eyes before his expression turned solemn. What's dangerous is your current condition. Chen Feng, I know you want to rapidly increase your spiritual energy. However, you are in too much a rush. Is it that obvious? Chen Feng was somewhat embarrassed. Don't take this lightly. Mu Yuan sighed. I remember how when I was short of money when young, I had thought of a lot of ways to make money fast and easy. However, I did not have the ability to act on it. Only when I grew up and planned to start my thought-out plans did I notice that all these shortcuts were already described in the law. Chen Feng was dumbstruck. So what you thought of was all illegal methods. Do you understand me? Mu Yuan advised. Normally, shortcuts are accompanied by danger. The faster it is, the more dangerous it is. Even if it's gene strengthening, you need to take it slow and not act recklessly. Many thanks. Chen Feng understood his meaning. In order to rapidly improve, there will be dangers. Mu Yuan smiled. Not everyone can be like us gene producers. We only need to steadily produce our genes and will be able to increase our power as a result. Look at me. My spiritual energy has been increasing steadily. Now, I have broken through E-class. Mu Yuan was proud. This was also the reason why gene producer was a popular profession. That's true. Chen Feng laughed involuntarily. Remember, don't be reckless, Mu Yuan warned repeatedly. Chen Feng smiled. Naturally, after thanking Mu Yuan, Chen Feng ended the call. Although this chatterbox-friendly elder brother repeatedly emphasized the dangers, Chen Feng had already made up his mind. No matter how dangerous it was, could it be more dangerous than the dragon's passing mountain incident? Chen Feng had never planned to become a shut-in nerd producer all along. To aid in gene production, a majority of gene producers would fuse with support-type genes. As such, their combat power was very weak. Although a grandmaster producer could hire someone to protect himself, could Chen Feng leave his safety in the hands of others? If Chen Feng was being honest with himself, it was something he couldn't do. A human's heart was too complicated. This was especially true in this dangerous yet unfamiliar world. Chen Feng did not want to depend on others' protection forever. Nor did he want to stay in safe zones forever, becoming a shut-in nerd. There were too many mystical places in this world, and he wanted to visit them all. Who said that a gene producer had to fuse with a support gene? Who said that a gene producer could not have combat power? Even as a gene producer, he also wanted to be the gene producer with the highest combat power. Chen Feng was confident. Since he wanted to be an expert, the basic activities such as battling and tempering himself couldn't be avoided. Gene strengthening? Chen Feng had to do it. However, he needed to make ample preparations. On the same day, Chen Feng started researching the information of Windblade online. His genetic ability originated from a mutated beast called Wind Fox, which was abundant everywhere. If it was Gold City, after filtering the options, only one place was left: Green Hill Forest. Green Hill Forest. 60 meters south of Gold City, there was a huge forest. Due to the terrain being rugged, human activity there was sparse. It became the habitat for tens of types of mutated beasts. Not many people stepped foot there normally. Only small genetic squads that were comparatively strong would dare to perform gene strengthening there. Wind Fox was one of the tens of types of mutated beasts available there. Chen Feng carefully looked over the information. Luckily, the Wind Fox was not a species that liked to live together in flocks. Presently, the advantages possessed by mutated beasts are comparatively huge. I couldn't defeat those stronger than me at all. Chen Feng sank into contemplation. If he were to activate Luck Aura to instantly kill wind foxes that were stronger than him, his rate of improvement would be faster as well. 1 point of spirit was able to increase the maximum spiritual energy by 1 point while his current spirit was at 52 points. I still need 38 points. Chen Feng's requirement was not high. He only wanted his spiritual energy to reach 90 points, enabling him to produce the strongest gene, and it would be sufficient. If he were to hunt for mutated beasts in a rational way, it was possible for him to rush to 90 points in a short period of time. There's a chance. Chen Feng was tempted. After calculating, he deduced that with Luck Aura, the risk he faced when going to Green Hill Forest to kill wind foxes was not too high, yet the gains he stood to reap were extremely high. Chen Feng decided it's worth going. However, there were some other problems. For example, the 3 idiots that had trailed him previously. Although they had subsequently disappeared, Chen Feng couldn't help but to maintain a high vigilance and prepare himself thoroughly. Spirit Recovery Reagent, 3 bottles. Spirit Increase Reagent, 3 bottles. Thunder Snake Gene Reagent, 1 bottle. Mutated Beast Detector, 1 set. After 2 days, Chen Feng finished all his preparations. He had originally planned to produce 2 bottles of Thunder Snake Gene Reagent. Unfortunately, he was totally broke. His funds could only support the production of 1 of them. After everything was prepared, he left for the Genetic Union's camp at Green Hill Forest. Green Hill Forest. Quietly, Chen Feng entered the forest. The sun was scorching. The sun shone through the dense tree leaves, bringing a flurry of heat with it. Chen Feng was cautiously observing his surroundings, not daring to lower his guard. F-class mutated beast, Earth drill bird. Chen Feng glanced at it and carefully avoided the beast. Although these mutated beasts were not a threat to him, Chen Feng was obviously not interested in these mutated beasts that would not bring him any apparent gains. F-class mutated beast, Skyleap ape. F-class mutated beast, Skyzoabor. Chen Feng penetrated deep into the forest and finally reached the territory of the wind foxes. Looking into the distance, Chen Feng could clearly see one after another green and white-colored foxes wandering on the hill, seemingly hunting something. After a long time, a mournful scream resounded. Chen Feng's heart leapt. Several wind blades were instantly unleashed. A skyzoa boar that was passing by was slashed into pieces. A group of illusionary-looking wind foxes exposed a savage expression on their faces and leapt at it viciously with their claws extended and directly tore the skyzoa boar into pieces. Streams of blood were streaming down their claws, giving them an extremely terrifying appearance. Hiss! Chen Feng inhaled a breath of cold air. This was a mutated wind fox. Along with the increase in their strength, the killing instinct of these mutated beasts would also increase. With bloodlust as their second nature, no matter how meek they appeared, they were actually extremely terrifying. Whoosh! Chen Feng carefully aimed at a lone wind fox that was separated from the rest. His wristband vibrated as the mutated beast detector he had prepared started scanning. Gene attributes: Strength, 15, Agility, 22, Physique, 18, Spirit, 48. Ding. After comparing with your attributes, the result is as follows: 5-point increase in Strength, 12-point increase in Agility, 8-point increase in Physique, 4-point decrease in Spirit. Not recommended to fuse. Chen Feng shook his head. He could still ignore the other 3 attributes, but for Spirit to decrease? This was his main attribute. It seemed like this wind fox was not suited to be his gene-strengthening material. Chen Feng sprawled within the thicket and observed his surroundings without stop using his wristband. Suddenly, Chen Feng saw a wind fox that was distinctly larger than the rest and instinctively scanned it. Gene attributes: Strength, 55, Agility, 52, Physique, 88, Spirit, 100. Damn. Chen Feng was shaken. 100 Spirit. Was that the leader? If he killed that beast. Chen Feng's eyes were red from temptation. However, as he recalled the unknown danger Mu Yuan mentioned, Chen Feng calmed himself down quickly. The attributes of a wind fox at this level far exceeded Chen Feng's. It was very probable that something bad would happen. Wind fox leader. Chen Feng took his thunder snake gene reagent out and looked longingly at the attributes of this wind fox leader on his wristband screen for a long time before finally deciding to give up on it. Mu Yuan's words were still somewhat effective on Chen Feng. Currently, if he were too greedy, something bad might happen. Let's change the target. Chen Feng sighed and continued searching the outer layer of the area. A suitable wind fox was not easy to find. Chen Feng was clear on his advantages and disadvantages. Only after 1 whole hour did Chen Feng lock onto another target. All the attributes are higher than mine by 5 points. After gene strengthening, I should get 2 points. Chen Feng was tempted. This was a feasible target. Chen Feng approached silently. However, when he was roughly 10 meters from the wind fox moved slightly and abruptly looked toward Chen Feng's direction. Not good. I've been discovered. Chen Feng's heart leapt. He was paying too much attention to the attributes and combat power of this wind fox and forgot that wind foxes also possessed a high level of awareness. Whoosh! As the wind fox sensed an unfamiliar aura, it abruptly scuttled toward that aura with a speed that was multiple times faster than Chen Feng's. A chain of 3 wind blades instantly condensed in front of the beast. Xiu, xiu. One after another, wind blades pierced the air, heading toward Chen Feng. Chen Feng was shocked. The heck? Is this 5%? Whoosh! Chen Feng instinctively released a single wind blade. Only one appeared. The azure-colored radiance collided with the wind fox's light blade. However, in only a short moment, Chen Feng's wind blade shattered. At the same time, together with 3 wind blades, the wind fox was already leaping toward Chen Feng. In these few short seconds, the wind fox had displayed its formidable killing ability. Can't drag on. Chen Feng inhaled. This wind fox surpassed him in every aspect. If he did not use luck aura, he stood no chance at all. Ow! As the wind blades neared him, Chen Feng inhaled while he unleashed his wind blade. After the consumption of 1 point of luck value, a terrifying might was displayed by his wind blade. 10 combo attack. Plop, plop, plop. Blue light flickered followed by a howl, and the wind fox was no longer conscious. Chen Feng quickly took out the prepared gene-absorbing tool and absorbed the wind fox's gene before injecting it into himself. Chen Feng could feel a warm current entering his body. The freshly injected gene started to fuse with the gene within his body as the temperature of his body slightly increased. A few beads of sweat appeared on his body. However, it did not affect him much. He could feel his body increasing in quality. After the gene strengthening ended, his attributes had increased. Gene attributes: strength, 12, agility, 12, physique, 12, spirit, 54 2-point increase for each of his attributes. It was not an easy feat to find a suitable wind fox. Rustle. Before Chen Feng could even bask in the enjoyment that feeling brought, he could sense that peculiar sounds were starting to appear around him as the faint stench of blood spread around him. I need to leave. Chen Feng was cautious and left immediately. Less than 1 minute after he left, more than 10 mutated beasts appeared, fighting with each other as the wind fox's corpse was torn apart. This was the world of mutated beasts. Without the assistance of Lakora, the one being ripped apart might be Chen Feng instead. Next, Chen Feng's gaze wandered toward the distant wind foxes, looking for his next target. 1, 2, 3. Chen Feng hunted quietly. After all, these wind foxes were only normal F-class mutated beasts. Under Chen Feng's unlimited wind blades, they could pose no resistance. The only thing Chen Feng needed to take note of was to leave promptly after each kill. He definitely could not be discovered by other beasts, or else he would definitely die without even a burial site. After more than half day, Chen Feng's spirit finally reached 62 points. 4 instances of 1-point increases and 3 instances of 2-point increases. It was too hard. In 7 hours, he had only performed 7 gene strengthenings. On average, only 1 suitable beast was found per hour. After calculating, Chen Feng found that he had used a total 10 points of luck value. Among these, 3 points were used when he was fleeing from a few mutated beasts that he had accidentally encountered. Chen Feng calculated silently. Only a 10-point increase in spirit after consuming 10 points of luck value? Even the him that possessed Lakora encountered such hardship. How about the others? Gene strengthening was dangerous indeed. It's getting late. I'll go back after killing a few more, Chen Feng told himself. However, all the wind foxes had disappeared for some unknown reason. Chen Feng searched for a short while yet failed to find any wind foxes. Even when he penetrated deeper into the wind fox's birthplace, he still couldn't find a single wind fox. Something is wrong. Chen Feng felt something amiss. Retreat. Chen Feng retreated without hesitation. However, at this moment, whoosh, a streak of light radiating with a cold glint flew over Chen Feng's scalp as Chen Feng barely dodged this attack. If his agility hasn't been increased earlier, he would have been killed by the attack. What was that? Chen Feng glanced around instinctively and felt his soul leaving his body. A dense group of wind foxes had appeared and surrounded him. They were looking at him with ice-cold gazes, arranged neatly without a single wind fox running around in a disorderly manner. What's happening? Chen Feng felt something amiss. Had he been surrounded by wind foxes? How could these low-level mutated beasts possess intelligence? While Chen Feng blanked, that wind fox leader appeared from the hilltop. The scariest part of that wind fox leader's appearance was the fact that there was a youngster seated on the wind fox leader. Using the wind fox as a mount, Chen Feng's heart leapt. Who is that? On the hill, the wind fox leader stood proudly. Seated on it was a handsome young man. He glanced at Chen Feng indifferently, endless contempt in his eyes. Go. Without uttering any unnecessary words, he waved his hand and 30 wind foxes charged forward. Who is that? Chen Feng's heart leapt as he leapt backwards. One after another, terrifying wind blades started landing on the ground Chen Feng passed, scarring the ground with deep marks. Hiss. Chen Feng inhaled a breath of cold air. Whoosh! Another wind blade passed by him. Inhaling deeply, Chen Feng unleashed his power during the momentary gap when the wind foxes finished releasing their wind blades, killing 2 wind foxes before he quickly hid himself. The freshly increased agility displayed its usefulness, as there were several times where Chen Feng only barely dodged the attacks coming at him. Wind blade. So many wind blades that they covered the sky. This was the first time Chen Feng had a taste of what his opponents normally felt. Luckily, these wind blades attacked in a straight line. It was obvious that these low-level wind foxes couldn't control their wind blades. Although they could unleash combo attacks, the attacks all traveled in a straight line. Chen Feng was able to see the trajectory of the attacks from far away and could defend himself with the rocks and trees in the forest. He had also unleashed several 10 combo attacks effortlessly and killed around 7 to 8 wind foxes. At this, they stopped their attacks. Soon, those wind foxes got out of the way as the wind fox leader and the young man slowly walked over, giving Chen Feng the opportunity to get a clear look at the young man's appearance. That is, Chen Feng's pupil constricted. That was a man with a stunningly pretty face. However, What shocked Chen Feng the most was not his looks but instead the hairy ears on his head and that long furry tail at his back. Mutant. This was the term that appeared abruptly in Chen Feng's mind. He once read from a book that one who did not meet the requirements yet fused with a gene reagent forcefully had a small probability to mutate after failing the fusion. The mutated beast's gene would take the dominant position in the body instead and the person would become a half-human, half-beast organism, a vastly different type of organism. These people were extremely dangerous. That was because a normal person would perform gene strengthening through absorbing the genes of mutated beasts while these people would perform gene strengthening through absorbing humans' genes. They were close to being a human's natural predator. Seems like there's no chance to make peace. Chen Feng did not expect that he would meet a mutant that preyed on normal humans here at Green Hill Forest. From his opponent's gaze, he realized that this would be a battle that would not end without one party dying. He had become his opponent's prey. It's getting somewhat troublesome. Chen Feng was speechless. Those normal wind foxes did not bother him at all. However, that terrifying wind fox leader was something that he might not be able to rival even after using luck aura. It was extremely dangerous. Surprisingly, that mutant merely rubbed the wind fox leader's head before walking out and standing in front of Chen Feng. Bang! A terrifying power was emitted from the mutant's body. He stood proudly and looked at Chen Feng coldly while an azure-colored wind blade swirled around him. He was provoking Chen Feng. 100 points of spirit stuck at the limit of F-class. Chen Feng suddenly understood. Limit mode. This was an extremely peculiar mode. The enhancements provided by the gene's attributes were, in essence, something that aroused the gene potential within one's body. However, there was a limit to one's body. Even after fusing a gene with one's body, there would still be a limit. The limit for a F-class genetic warrior was 100 attribute points. Regardless of the attribute, as soon as it reached 100 points, it would enter limit mode. The limit mode was a situation where no normal methods would be able to increase the attributes anymore. At this time, one could only surpass the limit and break through one's predicament before being able to once again increase one's attributes. According to the genetic union, a human body possessed unlimited potential. They were merely chained by unseen shackles. This was the so-called limit mode. Only by removing these shackles and breaking through the locks would one be able to surpass themselves and become more powerful. There were a lot of methods to surpass one's limit. There were some who trained unceasingly, surpassing themselves through effort and sweat. There were some who engaged in battle, surpassing themselves by breaking through via desperation. There were some who were exceedingly lucky, surpassing themselves by fortuitous encounters and coincidences. There were also some who were unable to surpass themselves for their whole lives. This was the case for both normal humans and mutants. The mutant in front of him had obviously reached the limit mode and was planning to use Chen Feng as the springboard to break through his limit mode, entering E-class. Howl! All the wind foxes around cheered him. Step by step, that mutant neared. A terrifying power was being condensed by him, and Chen Feng was able to sense a familiar power bubbling unceasingly around him. That was the power of the wind fox's bloodline. Howl! The mutant howled. The mutant aimed at Chen Feng and a wind blade shot out of his hand. This was a different wind blade from what the normal wind foxes released. His wind blade was clearly faster and stronger, and in a higher quantity as well. He wanted to slay Chen Feng to enter E-class. Using me as a stepping stone? Chen Feng smiled. Come. A cold glint flickered in Chen Feng's eyes. A clash of wind blades. He was never afraid of that. Bang, bang, bang. Terrifying sounds of explosions reverberated throughout the area. A succession of wind blades started shattering mid-air, and the wind foxes around them were forced to retreat a few steps back as they witnessed the shocking scene that was unfolding in the air. 10 wind blades, 20 wind blades, 30 wind blades. The whole area was enveloped by an incomparably bright azure radiance. There were no signs of them stopping. What was left was an endless bout of clashing wind blades. He actually dares to have a battle of wind blades with me? Initially, the mutant was still incomparably confident. Who was he? A mutant. Although he had lost a lot as a mutant, he had also gained the most outstanding bloodline of the wind foxes. Competing in wind blades, nobody had ever surpassed him. Even the wind fox leader was unable to do so. Furthermore, his wind blades were obviously more powerful than Chen Feng's wind blades. A single wind blade of his was able to destroy 2 of Chen Feng's wind blade. Having a wind blade match with him was akin to courting death. However, when the amount of wind blades that were clashing exceeded 50, he started to be somewhat astonished. A continuous combo of 50 wind blades. This youngster's research on wind blades seemed to have reached the pinnacle of wind blades, and was considered rare talent in this world. When the amount of wind blades reached 100, his expression started to change even though the amount of wind blades he required was merely half of it, just 50. The amount was still increasing. Wind blades never stopped appearing. Bang, bang. Once again, the amount of clashing wind blades rose rapidly. 120 wind blades. 130 wind blades. 150 wind blades. The mutant's complexion started to become green. Is this really a human? How can a human reach this level? However, their clashes never stopped. At this time, none of them dared to stop, because the one who stopped would die. 170 wind blades. 180 wind blades. The mutant was thoroughly stupefied. Who's the actual mutant here? I am the actual successor of the Wind Fox's bloodline. I am the one with the purest Wind Fox's bloodline. He was beginning to doubt his bloodline, wondering if he had mutated into a fake Wind Fox's bloodline during his genetic mutation. How could things have turned out this way? He couldn't understand. Bang, bang. 190 wind blades. 200 wind blades. The wind blades finally broke through the terrifying amount of 200, while the amount of wind blades the mutant unleashed finally reached 100. However, what shocked him was that even now, his opponent's wind blades were still increasing in amount. It's still going up. Is there an end to this? This is no longer something as simple as probability, right? Even if he can form wind blades quickly, it wouldn't be to such an extent, right? The mutant was almost collapsing from despair. He only wanted Chen Feng to give him some pressure in order to break through. He did not expect that Chen Feng's combo of wind blades would pressure him to the point where he started questioning the natural order of the world. You can't bully someone like this. Green Hill Forest, at the territory of the Wind Foxes, a heated confrontation was still in progress. Bang, bang. Wind blades shattered. The mutant that was usually full of arrogance was currently pale. His face trembled as he looked at the never-ending wind blades, released by his opponent, which almost drove him into desperation. How is this possible? The mutant was inwardly alarmed. Under normal circumstances, there was no cool-down period for wind blades. However, due to the need to form and activate it, and also the momentary pause in movement after releasing the wind blades, one could only release an average of one wind blade per second. If one were to master certain special techniques, there was a possibility for the release speed to increase, enabling one to unleash combo attacks. This, in essence, was how combo wind blades were achieved. As a mutant with the Wind Fox bloodline, he had very high comprehension on all aspects of wind blades. Hence, there were no pauses whatsoever between wind blades released by him. Therefore, he could reach the absolute level of 100 continuous releases without depending on the probability rate to trigger. He reached this amount with pure ability alone. Wind blade would consume 1 point of spiritual energy per release, and he had a spiritual energy of 100 points. Hence, the minimum amount he could typically reach was 100 releases. Once the probability was triggered, the amount of wind blades released by him would increase. He believed that he would become even more powerful after reaching E-class. As for triggering the probability for additional wind blades, this was also something he was proud of. The probability rate to trigger additional wind blades for a normal person was 5%. He, on the other hand, as a mutant possessing the bloodline of Wind Fox, possessed a terrifying probability rate of 20%. Every time he fully unleashed the wind blades, he would reach a total amount around 120 to 150 from the combination of normal releases and the probability-triggered releases. A terrifying amount. Hence, he had never regretted turning into a mutant. However, now, bang, bang, a chain of wind blades descended. Calculating the amount, the mutant's face was deathly pale as he noted that it had reached 280 wind blades. This damnable human had reached 280 wind blades, shattering the pride of the mutant while ravaging him viciously in the process as well. He probably can't go on much longer. The mutant prayed in his heart. However, with grief, he found that his 100 points of spiritual energy were almost used up at this point. Naturally, he did not realize that he was wrong from the start. Chen Feng's 100 combo and 200 combo attacks were unrelated to his wind blade release speed. Instead, all of them were purely triggered by the probability. Bang! Another chain of wind blades descended. 290 wind blades. 300 wind blades. Pop! In the end, The mutant failed to outlast him. Bang! He was flung out of the area. He had been defeated in this clash of wind blades. The mutant was puzzled. How can it be this way? Good chance. A cold glint flickered in Chen Feng's eyes. Adhering to the concept of taking one's life while one was sick, Chen Feng unleashed his wind blade once again without hesitation. A powerful force pierced through the mutant. The wind foxes around them were anxious, yet they did not take any action in the end. As Chen Feng's wind blades were on the brink of slaying the mutant, a change occurred. Bang! An astonishing yet terrifying power was released from the mutant's body. The frightening power pierced the heavens. This aura. Chen Feng's heart leapt. E-class. This guy really surpassed his limit. Ha ha ha. The mutant laughed wildly. Howl. The mutant's body started growing in size, and white fur started growing on his body. Originally, the only part where his body differed from a normal human body was the furry ears and tail. However, that body was now completely covered with fur. Only his face still somewhat resembled a human head with a fox's body. This was a true mutant. Chen Feng was solemn. Ha ha ha. The mutant laughed wildly. I broke through. I finally broke through. A mutant does not need to fuse genes at every class. Hee hee. I only need to devour you. Your ability, your gene, everything of yours now belongs to me. With a malevolent expression on his face, that handsome face currently appeared incomparably twisted. Thump, thump. He walked out step by step while a terrifying power roared around him. Although breaking through his limit only increased his attribute by 1 point, being an E-class mutant, it allowed the power of the Wind Fox's bloodline to flourish, changing his body to be more beast-like. With the newly grown thick fur and a stronger bloodline, his combat power had increased greatly. Clash of wind blades, right? Let me show you, who are the one with the true Wind Fox bloodline, the mutant bellowed. Whoosh! Wind blades were once again unleashed. Chen Feng only looked at him coldly. Who the heck wants to compete in the Wind Fox's bloodline with you? As a result of this guy breaking through to E-class, the Wind Fox leader started eyeing Chen Feng while the normal Wind Foxes started to surround him. As he saw this, without hesitation, he threw out an item radiating a green and white color. What? The mutated man blanked momentarily. Howl. The Wind Fox leader, who had maintained its vigilance, felt something amiss and leapt on the mutant, pushing him onto the ground. Bang! The sound of thunder reverberated as a terrifying power threw the Wind Fox leader out of the area. The Wind Fox leader fell on the ground and blood splattered around, and it no longer stood up after that. The normal Wind Foxes around them were also hit by the explosion. None of them survived. In fact, none of their corpses stayed intact. The mutated man was suffering from a serious injury as well. Fox Pippi. The mutant howled and crawled up with great difficulty and looked at this scene in shock. He had never expected that just as he broke through to E-class, he had attracted this move from his opponent. You have surprisingly survived. Chen Feng was somewhat regretful. The speed of the Wind Fox leader was too fast. It had actually protected the mutant with its own life. It seemed to really consider that mutant as part of its clan. Furthermore, after breaking through to E-class, the thick fur on his body had resisted a huge amount of damage for him. However, exceeding anyone's expectation, that mutant only gazed deeply at the Wind Fox leader before turning around and starting to escape. Want to run? Chen Feng slashed toward him with several wind blades. However, the current mutant was already at E-class. Even with injuries on his body, his speed was still above Chen Feng's. It quickly disappeared from Chen Feng's line of sight. Chen Feng shook his head. Can't keep up. This was the domain of Wind Foxes. For this guy to escape, it signified great troubles ahead of him. Let's leave here first. Chen Feng looked at the ground around him. A high amount of Wind Foxes had been killed. However, under the destruction of Thunder Snake Gene's power, the corpses of the ordinary Wind Foxes were all burnt without any reactivity left in their genes. Only the corpse of the Wind Fox leader, who possessed formidable strength and thick skin, was in somewhat good condition. Plop. Chen Feng extracted the gene of the Wind Fox leader before leaving quickly. Just a minute after Chen Feng left, he started hearing unceasing sounds of rustling as, one after another, Wind Foxes appeared everywhere and started searching the area without stop. The mutant had returned with over 100 Wind Foxes to search that area without stop, seeking Chen Feng. So fast. Chen Feng was solemn. Now that he was deep within the territory of the Wind Fox, he would not be able to escape anytime soon. Furthermore, that mutant was also yearning for Chen Feng's gene. Things are getting somewhat troublesome. Chen Feng inhaled deeply. The speed in which this mutant had gathered the wind foxes far exceed Chen Feng's imagination. The amount of wind foxes seemed to be even higher than the earlier group when the mutant had first appeared. Is it due to him breaking through to E-class? Chen Feng guessed what to do. Chen Feng inhaled deeply. He was aware that the mutant was planning to trap him here, unless. Chen Feng looked at the gene in his hand. This was the gene that was freshly extracted from the corpse of the wind fox leader. Its gene attributes were extremely high. If Chen Feng was able to successfully fuse with it, his spiritual energy would be increased from 62 points to 81 points. His other attributes, such as strength, physique and agility, would also reach 50 points. This was an extremely formidable all-rounded upgrade. With an all-around increase in his combat power and his unlimited wind blades, he stood a chance to battle it out. However, Chen Feng suddenly recalled Mu Yuan's words, unknown dangers. If one were to fuse with a gene exceeding one's willpower and the tolerance level of one's body, unknown dangers would appear. Chen Feng hesitated before smiling bitterly. Were there any other options? The gene of the wind fox leader might lose its reactivity at any time. If he continued hesitating, he would lose even this single chance of his. Hopefully you won't disappoint me, Chen Feng muttered to himself. Plop. He injected himself with the gene. At this time, he could only risk it all. Bang! A terrifying power started gushing out. Chen Feng almost vomited a mouthful of blood from this. Too powerful. This genetic power was too powerful. Chen Feng's attributes were originally comparatively weaker. Due to this, he almost failed to endure the extreme contrast between his attributes and those of the wind fox leader. His whole body trembled unceasingly like a sieve as he endured the transformation brought forth by the gene. The immense pain almost caused Chen Feng to faint. Attribute upgrades were not always something pleasurable. So this is the unknown danger? Chen Feng clenched his teeth. Previously, all his attributes were increased by 1 or 2 points each time, with the maximum being 3 points. He had never expected that this increase of tens of points would be so terrifying. Another mouthful of blood was vomited. Chen Feng felt immense pain throughout his body, akin to being set on fire. This was the so-called willpower and body's tolerance. He had to endure it. Endure. Chen Feng bellowed inwardly, and all over his body, veins started surfacing. The suffering he experienced in his previous life helped Chen Feng to stay incomparably firm at this moment. As long as he endured it, he would reap a huge gain this time. He had to endure it. If he failed, he would have worked for nothing. This was a rare opportunity, one which Chen Feng did not want to waste. Bang, bang. One after another, sounds of explosion resounded from within Chen Feng's body. Blood dripped out of Chen Feng's mouth, yet he still endured it. However, just as he was halfway through the gene strengthening process, a familiar voice appeared, causing Chen Feng's heart to drop to the abyss. Finally found you, the mutant. Chen Feng's heart leapt. He had actually come. Before his eyes, the mutant appeared. Around him, nearly 100 wind foxes had him surrounded as they eyed him viciously. Gene strengthening? The mutant sneered. Human, a weak species. You humans selfishly believe that you are the masters of the world, yet in the future, this will be the world of us mutants. We, mutants, are much stronger than you all. Now, the mutant looked at Chen Feng greedily. You are mine. Damn it. Inwardly, Chen Feng had a feeling that something bad was about to happen. He had taken the possibility of the mutant's return into consideration. However, what he did not take into consideration was the immense pain brought about by gene strengthening. He did not expect it would actually be so terrifying when one absorbed a gene far surpassing one's own ability, or that the time required to perform the gene strengthening would be so long. You will be grateful to me. The mutant placed his hand on Chen Feng's chest. PSSHH. The sharp claws on his hand penetrated deeply into Chen Feng's flesh. Now, let me devour your power. The mutant smiled malevolently. A gush of power started flowing out of his body. He planned to devour Chen Feng's gene, turning it into part of him. Not only that, what he planned was to devour Chen Feng alive. Damn it. Veins started surfacing on Chen Feng's whole body. He wanted to move, yet he couldn't budge. The gene of the wind fox leader was too powerful. It was powerful to the extent where the only thing he could do was to only endure with everything he had until the gene strengthening was completed. Under such immense pain, it was already good for one to be able to stay conscious. Am I going to die here? Chen Feng opened his eyes wide. He was unwilling. Gene strengthening. Chen Feng suddenly recalled something. Luck aura. accelerate the gene strengthening process. However, there was no effect. If I can't accelerate the strengthening speed, I shall let all the genes in my body strengthen separately instead. Prioritize a part of it first, even if only a hand is completed. It will be sufficient. Chen Feng roared inwardly. Whoosh! The luck value dropped rapidly. 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. The luck aura was something that worked on what Chen Feng willed it to work on. However, something like gene strengthening, even if 10,000 points of luck values were consumed, it would still not change. However, along with the consumption of luck value, the last-minute strengthening plan he had devised surprisingly started proceeding without hiccups. First were his fingers. Chen Feng's forefinger and middle finger completed their strengthening at this moment. Done. Chen Feng was in ecstasy. The gene strengthening sequence could actually be altered. This gene strengthening process was originally a clash of two completely identical genes, akin to two types of liquid being poured into a vessel. The clash of genes was not something controllable. However, now, due to the existence of luck aura, they were lined up in an orderly fashion and started the strengthening process without any disorder. Even the pain he was enduring was somewhat reduced. I can move my fingers. Chen Feng held his excitement in. Although this was a simple procedure, it consumed 10 points of his luck value. The originally low amount of remaining luck value was currently nearing the bottom. This was an immense consumption. At this moment, the mutant was absorbing Chen Feng's gene. In his head, he could already picture the future where he absorbed Chen Feng's gene into his body, turning them into a part of him. He would be able to reach 100 combo attacks or 1000 combo attacks, creating a legend. However, at this moment, he suddenly noticed that Chen Feng's wrist that originally couldn't move was shuddering slightly. You can move now? The mutant was shocked. Gene strengthening, especially when fusing with this type of exceedingly strong gene, how could one move before completion? Wait. The mutant recalled something as his expression changed. If Chen Feng could move, wouldn't that mean? At this moment, he could seemingly feel that a smile had curled up on the corner of this human's lips. Subsequently, he saw an instantaneous release of a chain of wind blades. All the wind blades pierced through his chest without pause. His body had already sustained serious injuries. The only reason he'd come to Chen Feng was to perform gene strengthening. Hence, he was unguarded and ended up being pierced into a sieve by Chen Feng's attacks. The mutant opened his eyes wide. Blood was flowing. How is this possible? The mutant touched his chest in daze. Only a vast expanse of red blood could be felt there. He looked at the human. That guy was actually still going through the gene strengthening process. Ha 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 ha. The mutant started to laugh silently, laughing until he cried. Able to move during the gene strengthening process, having a higher amount of wind blades than him? What kind of freak was he facing? Compared to a mutant like him that was supposed to be a freak, this human seemed to be the real freak. Thump. He collapsed with an unreconciled heart. At this moment, along with the death of the mutant, the over 100 wind foxes around howled as they looked at Chen Feng viciously, seemingly on the edge of rushing to Chen Feng. Chen Feng's finger trembled lightly. Bang! Wind blades fluttered around. Whoosh, whoosh. Tens of wind blades rotated around him. Although Chen Feng had yet to complete his gene strengthening, his spirit had increased by a large amount. Facing these ordinary wind foxes, it was a one-sided slaughter. Thump, thump. Several wind foxes collapsed. The rest of the wind foxes felt something amiss and scattered immediately. Without the wind fox leader and the mutant, it was impossible for these wind foxes that were originally solitary beasts to unite. The wind foxes left, leaving multiple corpses behind. The area was in a mess. Only Chen Feng survived. Currently, he only had 5 points of luck left. With some difficulty, Chen Feng opened his mouth. Survived. However, this was only a beginning. Because, currently, his gene strengthening had reached the final stage. That was the sound of his bones being transformed. Clenching his teeth, Chen Feng endured everything as his whole body was dripping with sweat. The gene strengthening process that was proceeding in an orderly fashion had returned to its previous state due to Chen Feng deactivating the luck aura. The pain he suffered had reached the maximum. Him stopping the luck aura was not due to him being unable to use it. Instead, it was him not daring to use it. Just using the luck aura to complete the gene strengthening on his hand had consumed 10 points of luck values. What change could a mere 5 points bring? It couldn't change anything. Since that was the case, he might as well continue enduring this pain. At this place full of danger, Chen Feng did not dare to waste even the tiniest bit of his luck value. However, for him to be able to still think at this moment, was he not impressive? Why am I thinking about this? Chen Feng could feel his thoughts starting to fall into disorder. Those 3 idiots that tried to assassinate me in Black Cloud Continent seem to have disappeared. It can't be that, after getting set up by me, they started to think that it was actually profitable to sell blood essence after all and changed their profession, right? I wonder if that bald Xf will still be able to grow his hair. That little girl Sujin, could it be that she likes me? But she's not my type. Actually, Wang Yao doesn't seem too bad, right? Although her age is somewhat low, she doesn't seem to be completely flat-chested, right? What's her relationship with Wang's sister? Hey, if Mu Yuan found the current state I'm in, he would probably start nagging me for not listening to him, right? I wonder if they caught that old bastard Xi Kang's Hong yet? Countless bizarre thoughts surfaced in Chen Feng's brain. Currently, his brain felt like a clump of glue. However, he did not stop himself from indulging in these random thoughts as he felt that this seemed to be somewhat helpful in reducing his pain. His sight getting blurry, Chen Feng tried to stay awake with great difficulty. After every burst of pain, Chen Feng could feel an increase of power within him. This is an improvement. This is a good thing. I must not lose consciousness, Chen Feng warned himself inwardly. At this moment, seemingly having sensed the aura on Chen Feng's body, a few weak F-class mutated beasts looked toward his direction, their eyes glinting ominously. This. Chen Feng could only smile bitterly. What was this? Even the mutant was killed by him, yet he would get himself killed off by some F-class mutated beasts. He was a genius possessing the ability to battle someone of a higher class. Currently, those few mutated beasts seemed to have sensed the power contained in Chen Feng's body. Their gazes were immediately filled with greed, and killing intent started seeping into their scarlet-colored eyes. Howl. The group of mutated beasts rushed over to Chen Feng. Damn. Chen Feng smiled bitterly. Currently, the only thing he could depend on was luck aura. However, in this situation, would it be useful? Luck aura. Activate. The luck aura was something that operated in accordance with Chen Feng's will. Otherwise, if his intention was only to release a wind blade, yet the luck aura was busy working on everything else around them, consuming several hundreds or several thousands of points per second, those few luck values of his would not be enough at all. Let me complete the strengthening smoothly, Chen Feng chanted inwardly. Bang! At this, the remaining 5 points of luck declined rapidly. In a flash, all of them were used up. However, the mutated beasts around him were still there. I really did think too much, Chen Feng muttered. Is the luck value not enough? Chen Feng sighed. His sight was failing him while the pain in his body continued. Sensing that the mutated beasts were still rushing toward him and feeling helpless, Chen Feng chose to ignore them and continued his monologue. Chen Feng muttered in his heart, I'm near death anyway. What the heck should I be afraid of? I wonder if anyone will actually send me off. In his final moments, his consciousness started blurring. Vaguely, he seemed to hear the sound of an intense explosion. His body strengthening seemed to have completed at this moment. The pain in his body finally disappeared. Chen Feng appeared like someone who had soaked in sweat-formed vapor with his whole body drenched wet. With a pale face, he slumped powerlessly onto the ground. Success or failure? Chen Feng could not feel anything anymore. Still in somewhat of a daze, Chen Feng opened his eyes. He thought that he was starting to see things, as a familiar figure could be seen standing in front of him. He winked his eyes. Before he was completely clear-headed, with difficulty, he managed to miraculously utter these words, not flat-chested indeed. Bang! A terrifying power exploded on his abdomen as Chen Feng was kicked out of the area, knocking into and snapping 2 trees before he stopped. Chen Feng felt an explosion of pain in his body. This feeling, Chen Feng was suddenly clear-headed. I'm still alive? That's right, alive. His strength was gradually returning to him. Feeling the explosive strength contained in his body and the incomparably clear mind of his, he abruptly realized that he had survived the most difficult stage. Gene strengthening, success. He survived it. Chen Feng was in ecstasy. Wait. If this was the case, Chen Feng looked at the familiar-looking silhouette in front of him and immediately inhaled a breath of cold air. clear-headed now? Wang Yao's tiny face was looking at him coldly. Yes. Chen Feng felt anxious. He was scared that this little girl would take him away. Repeat what you said earlier. Wang Yao was boiling with killing intent. I'm sorry. Chen Feng repeatedly apologized. Earlier, he had uttered some nonsense as he was not clear-headed. Now, he did not dare to even mention what he said earlier. He did not even dare to say things that would have the slightest chance of expanding upon what he said earlier, such as I won't dare next time, I was talking nonsense, etc. Basically, earlier, he had seriously courted death. Wang Yao snorted coldly. HMPH. Chen Feng scratched his head. Why are you here? Facing this person that had saved his life twice, he really did feel somewhat embarrassed. I accidentally heard the sound of activity here and come over to take a look. Unexpectedly, I actually picked up a living person here, Wang Yao stated indifferently. Chen Feng. He was considered as something picked up off the street by this little eye. However, he was aware that part of this was due to luck Aura's effect. Originally, Wang Yao might have only passed through here directly. However, due to the existence of luck Aura, it caused her to accidentally notice this place. The 5 points of luck values were well spent. At this moment, the sound of someone gnashing one's teeth could be heard. Chen Feng. Chen Feng turned around and was immediately astonished. It was actually Wang. Chen Feng was astonished. Why are you here? I should be the one asking this question. Wang was seething with rage. With great difficulty, he had finally managed to pester her to come here and help him kill mutated beasts to increase his spirit attribute. Unexpectedly, just as he arrived, he came across Chen Feng, the bringer of bad luck. If he was alone, countless scenes of him torturing Chen Feng started appearing in his head. Me? Chen Feng ignored him. He turned around and looked at Wang Yao's doubt-filled gaze and explained while he smiled bitterly, I came here to perform gene strengthening. Unexpectedly, my foundations were too weak, and I almost failed to endure it. Is there anything trash like you is capable of enduring? Wang sneered. Is this the truth? Wang Yao's indifferent gaze swept through the corpses in the distance, not saying anything. Anyway, it's just nice that we meet here. Wang Yao slanted her tiny head and pondered. I saved you. Now, you have to help me with something. It is my honor. Chen Feng nodded. There's something in Green Hill Forest that I wanted. However, its restriction was somewhat troublesome. I originally wanted Wang to deal with it. However, he seems to be too much of a piece of trash, Wang Yao said indifferently. Elder sister. Wang felt wronged. Chen Feng's widened his eyes abruptly. Damn. Elder sister? Looking at Wang Yao's petite frame before looking at Wang that was at least 170 centimeters in height, Chen Feng was stupefied. They were actually siblings, and to be elder sister and younger brother, a small accident. Wang Yao did not want to say too much. Understood. Chen Feng suppressed the shock in his heart and his desire to know more. As he looked at the killing intent in the little girl's eyes, he was aware that his life might be in danger if he kept asking. Stop talking nonsense. Do you agree or not? Wang said impatiently. My sister saved you earlier. I can't do it now. Chen Feng shook his head. I can't remove any restrictions in my current condition. I will be able to do it tomorrow. Wang Yao glanced at Chen Feng's body, looking at the worn-out clothes soaked with sweat and his pale face before she slightly nodded. I'll find you tomorrow. So troublesome, Wang muttered and was glared at viciously by Wang Yao. Whoosh. Light flickered as they soared to the clouds. Wang Yao grabbed one of them with each of her hands as she brought Chen Feng and Wang back to the camp. After exchanging contact details with Chen Feng, she took Wang Yu and left. Chen Feng felt grateful. Although this little girl was always enveloped by killing intent, it was all directed toward her enemies. Helping her remove restrictions, Chen Feng needed to make his preparations. As he returned to the urban district and entered his rented house, he directly slumped onto his bed. Too tired. Too dangerous. Even after saving up 50 points of luck, preparing a bottle of Thundersnake gene reagent, and being incomparably cautious, he had still met with countless dangers and was almost unable to return to his home. Wanting to improve quickly, the price he had paid was far more terrifying than he had imagined. However, luckily, he had managed to return safely this time. The gains this time, on the other hand. Chen Feng scanned his genetic data. Gene attributes: strength, 50, agility, 50, physique, 50, spirit, 81. All-around improvement. Compared with the previous him, the current him was on a totally different level. The higher the risk, the higher the profit. After his near-death trip, his strength, agility and physique, which were originally at 10 points, had reached 50 points. His originally 52 points of spirit had become 81 points. Overall, the increase in his attributes was 149 points. An incomparably frightening number. I'm nearing the limit of 100 points. Chen Feng was excited. It was worth it. After removing the restriction for Wang Yao tomorrow, he would make some preparations before continuing to look for some wind fox leaders to kill. He would be able to reach 100 points in a short period of time. At that time, the strongest gene. He would definitely be able to complete his research on it. Chen Feng's heart was burning. His luck values were fully exhausted, yet he still needed to help Wang Yao tomorrow. However, he probably wouldn't need to waste his luck value. With Wang Yao around, who would dare to come and court death? He rested peacefully through the night. The next day, he reached the camp at Green Hill Forest. When he arrived, the Wang siblings were not there yet. However, unexpectedly, he saw Xuf's team there. Chen Feng. Xuf walked over, excited. Chen Feng's mouth twitched. He always felt like laughing whenever he saw Xuf's bald head. Xuf saw his expression and grudgingly said, I know you want to laugh. You don't have to hold it in. Ha ha. Chen Feng patted his shoulder. You didn't use any hair-growing reagent? Hair-growing reagent was a 1-star F-class gene reagent. Although it didn't have any use in combat, it was still extremely popular due to its ability to enable one to grow a beautiful bush of hair on their head in a single day. After that, one would be able to cut one's hair into any style one wished. It's useless. Xuf's expression was unsightly. He even went to the hospital. Zilling interjected and said while beaming. The doctor said that his scalp suffered an attack from an unknown power, causing it to be excessively hard, hence his hair not being able to grow at all. Chen Feng glanced at him pitifully. Hey, don't talk about this. It ruins the mood. Xuf waved his hand. Previously, when you contacted me, I was dealing with the group that ambushed our hearse. Pooh, the group that ambushed our flying vehicle. Hence, I didn't notice the notification. Subsequently, I was busy and forgot about it. No worries. Chen Feng smiled. I settled my issue. Then it's good. If there are any problems, you can contact me anytime. If I don't answer the call, you can also leave a message. Chen Feng shook his head. No major problems. Xuf was straightforward. So what are you here at Green Hill Forest for today? Do you need any help? I have an appointment with a friend. Is it a male or female? Xuf asked nosily. Chen Feng. Female. Xuf guessed from Chen Feng's reaction. Sujin. Xuf guessed. Damn. Brother, you aren't planning to perform a field operation 1, right? Chen Feng. Chen Feng sighed. Wang Yao. Hiss. Xuf inhaled a mouthful of cold air. You actually acted on her? The flowers of the motherland too. She is Wang's elder sister. Chen Feng's expression turned unsightly as he glared viciously at Xuf. Can you not be so perverted? Elder sister? Xuf was dazed. Only after a long time did he recover as he howled. In other words, kid, you actually found a legal ally. The heavens are unjust to actually let you. Whoosh. A familiar-looking flame appeared. The terrifyingly high temperature caused Xuf to shut his mouth immediately out of fear as he frantically retreated backward in shock. However, that lump of flame still descended upon Xuf's head without any warning. Bang! The sound of an explosion. Female hero, please spare my life. Xuf screamed pitifully. At this moment, a petite silhouette appeared at the camp's entrance. It was Wang Yao, who glanced at Xuf coldly, before finally laying her eyes on Chen Feng. Let's go, Wang Yao said indifferently. All right. Chen Feng patted Xuf's shoulder. There was only sympathy in his heart as he looked at Xuf's head. Brother, it's about time you change this defective mouth of yours. After they left, Xuf opened his screen while shuddering and aimed it at himself. He then stared foolishly at the 9 black dots on his head. Ring scar? The heck, there's even 9 of them. 3. I don't want to be a monk. Xuf screamed mournfully while Zilling laughed crazily beside him. The little girl is asking you to practice the mouth-shutting mantra because your mouth is too lowly. Is there no law? This is a camp. Isn't fighting prohibited here? Xuf grudgingly looked at the combat robot in the camp. Are you here as a decoration? Good day, mister. The combat robot's red eyes flickered before it honestly said, in accordance to our calculation, first, the one who acted did not have any killing intent. Second, the one who acted was too terrifying. If we were to act, it might lead to the camp perishing and everyone here dying. Third, we sent the recordings to the Genetic Union. If you want to hold her accountable or if any actual danger was encountered, someone from the upper levels of the Genetic Union can be dispatched here. Kindly confirm if that is required. What? It might lead to the camp perishing and everyone here dying. Xf and his group could feel their soul leaving their body as they trembled in fear. What kind of person was this Wang Yao? This was Green Hill Forest Camp, the territory of the Genetic Union. Even if it was a small camp at the outermost layer of the area, it was still a territory of Genetic Union. Wang Yao was actually so terrifying to the point where even the combat robot did not dare to act against her. Who was she? Exactly? Xf suddenly felt that him being alive was totally miraculous. Ziling suddenly opened her mouth. Seems like you really need to practice the mouth-shutting mantra. Xf was silent. Kindly confirm if you want to hold her accountable. The robot was still asking faithfully. What the heck can I hold her accountable for? Xf waved his hand before leaving with his team, as they also had their missions to perform today. However, after contemplating for a bit, he still decided to send a message to Chen Feng. At this time, Chen Feng and Wang Yao hadn't been gone for long. The wristband vibrated. As Chen Feng looked at it, he was immediately speechless. It was actually a message from Xf. Please apologize to Miss Wang Yao on my behalf. I will practice the mouth-shutting mantra for this whole month. Chen Feng showed it to Wang Yao. Although his mouth was somewhat lowly, your friend is very intelligent, Wang Yao said indifferently. Oh, Chen Feng did not expect this. Experts of their dignity as well. Not every one of them is as kind as me. Wang Yao's expression was apathetic. Oh, Chen Feng answered calmly. Although he knew that what Wang Yao said was sensible, for some unknown reason, as he looked at this person with an 11 or 12 years old appearance earnestly saying such words, he couldn't help but feel that this was a cute little girl throwing a fit, even if he was aware of how terrifying Wang Yao actually was. I must have gone crazy. Chen Feng sighed. It seemed like there were still some aspects of this world he hadn't completely accepted. At this time, Chen Feng, the sound of gnashing teeth could be heard. Wang was glaring viciously at him. This Chen Feng actually did not even spare him a look all along, acting as if he was non-existent. This was too excessive. Are we arriving soon? Chen Feng looked into the distance. We have arrived. Wang Yao brought them to the depth of the forest. It was said that there was mystical spring water there. Chen Feng. Wang howled. You dare to ignore me? Chen Feng looked at him indifferently. This time, I'm here to help your elder sister. You should just sit tight and act your part as baggage. Don't spout nonsense. I haven't settled the incident where you sent someone to ambush me during the examinations. If it wasn't for your elder sister, do you think you would actually still be alive now? Shut up. Wang's heart leapt as his expression changed greatly. Ambush. Wang Yao suddenly opened her mouth. What's the matter? Nothing. Wang gulped. Damn it, why did he provoke Chen Feng for no reason? You don't know? Chen Feng was somewhat astonished before shaking his head. It doesn't matter now. It's all in the past. I am here to help you today. Don't mention those things. Wang Yao's eyes swept through both Chen Feng and Wang before finally saying, let's go. Deep inside Green Hill Forest, Chen Feng could already see the flowing spring water. This is the Green Hill Spring. In order to make up for his mistake earlier, Wang stated in low voice, possessing a certain amount of spirituality, it is a material used for a lot of gene productions. However, our current target is not this. Instead, it is the end point of the Green Hill Spring. Oh, Chen Feng did not comment on it. As Wang looked at his expression, his anger bubbled. The three of them walked along the Green Hill Spring. When they reached the inner zone, they were already enveloped by mist. The visibility was low and an incorporeal restriction blocked their way forward. What is this? Astonished, Chen Feng held his hand out and touched it slightly. A cloud of mist quivered as Chen Feng's hand gently bounced off. Restriction? Chen Feng was shocked. Looking at the incorporeal mist floating mid-air, he knew how powerful the restriction was. The more powerful the blood essence was, the more complicated the restriction that resulted from it would be. However, a mist-formed restriction? Where was the blood essence? This is a naturally formed restriction. Wang Yao's cold voice resounded. This was originally a drop of a mist cloud beast's blood essence. After years of evolution, the blood essence vaporized and the power within the blood essence fused with the mist around it, forming this peculiar naturally formed restriction. It was even more powerful than ordinary restrictions. So that's the case, Chen Feng muttered thoughtfully. He extended his hand and felt the restriction once again. He entered the digitized mode to find with surprise that the restriction was not overly complicated at all. The lacking genes were found and the restriction was removed. He did not even use his luck value on this. Whoosh! The mist around them scattered quietly, opening a path before them. There doesn't seem to be anything special here. Chen Feng felt doubtful. However, as the three of them walked past this restriction, the mist behind them joined once more. That restriction activated again. It can actually join automatically. Is it unlimited? Chen Feng narrowed his eyes. So this was the formidable aspect of a naturally formed restriction. The thing I need is at the innermost part of this area. Wang Yao took the lead and opened a path before them. Chen Feng and Wang followed closely behind as they stepped into the depths of the mist. Currently, at the Green Hill camp, an exceptionally equipped team had appeared. It was a team of 4 with at least 3 of them wearing obviously unordinary clothes. From the materials of the clothes, it was obvious that these clothes were considerably expensive. Only the youngster in the middle of the group looked incomparably young and tender. Wu Fan, is it here? Captain Chang Hu asked. Wu Fan was excited. The gene of the mutated beasts I fused is at the Misty Zone in the depths of Green Hill Forest. I'm currently at 25 points of agility. I only need 75 more points to reach 100 points. Don't worry. Chang Hu nodded. Since we accepted your mission, we will definitely allow you to increase your attributes. 10,000 yuan for each point of attribute. 75 points would cost 750,000 yuan in total. The other attributes can be considered as our gift to you. No problem, right? No problem. Wu Fan was excited. I can finally improve. Although his family was wealthy, unfortunately, his family members were not optimistic about his future. Hence, no specialized training partner was assigned to him. Otherwise, how would he be weaker than Wang? Luckily, he could finally put the 2 years of pocket money he had saved to good use. He was now a high school graduate with solid foundations. There was no need to worry that something would go wrong. Even that Wang fellow had sprinted to 80 attribute points. So how could he fall behind? He was especially troubled after the Dragon's Passing Mountain incident. Hence, he decided to spend a large amount of money to boost himself to the peak of F-class. There was also the Chen Feng. Wu Fan clenched his teeth. The thing he found the most insulting was the fact that they were actually saved by trash that was looked down upon by all their schoolmates. Today, he had to rush himself to the peak of F-class before he proceeded to surpass his limit and step into E-class. By then, HMPH. Let's go. Chang Hu looked at the weather. Although you students have good foundations, your willpower is too weak. Hence, you can only increase 1 or 2 points each time. If you students were to increase too many points at once, you all will start crying in pain for your parents. For you to improve yourself, we need to kill around 40 to 50 suitable mutated beasts. Seems like we have a busy day ahead of us. Thus, be quiet on the road. Chang Hu's gaze was cold. Here, there were not only those low-level mutated beasts that you wanted to use for gene strengthening. There are also other things that are much more terrifying. If any formidable beasts are attracted, we will not be able to take care of you. I know, Wu Fan said impatiently. He was not bothered with Chang Hu's attitude at all. A few mere E-class warriors whose profession was helping others increase their attributes. Their profession could be considered as a branch of that lowly laborer profession. 750,000 yuan might appear to be a high amount. However, the 3 of them needed to work their asses off for a period of time only to end up earning an average of 30,000 yuan per day. What could they achieve with that amount nowadays? A commoner would forever remain a commoner. Inwardly, Wu Fan was full of disdain. Although his family was not as well off as Wang's family, they were still considered a rich and powerful family. A mere several 100,000 yuan was not something they would put in their eyes. Be careful. Don't let him act recklessly. Chang Hu was still worried as he said in a low voice to Jiang Ling, the only female of their team. If he starts shouting inconsiderately, seal off the sound. We can't let any trouble arise. Jiang Ling nodded slightly. Understood. Let's go. Contempt flashed in Chang Hu's eyes. He had seen a lot of these so-called young masters. Every single one of them had a heaven-surpassing pride, thinking that with their rich family and them joining a university they would be able to defeat everything under the heavens. It was simply ridiculous. They could hire others to help them reach 100 points easily when they were at F-class. However, what could they do after that? One needed to know that the limit for F-class was 100 points, while the limit for E-class was 1000 points. With that weak willpower of theirs, where they will start shouting in pain when their attribute increase exceeded 3 points, they were still dreaming of rapid improvement. too naive. The resources the wealthy had at their disposal were indeed formidable. It would enable them to improve at a speed higher than an ordinary person. This was an unchanging rule since times immemorial. However, wealth alone was not enough for one to be an expert. Furthermore, regardless of gene strengthening, consuming attribute increasing reagents, or tempering, the attributes could only be increased to the limit. Wanting to break through the limit, one still needed to work hard for it. These kinds of people that reached the limit through the assistance of others would definitely be stuck when they were trying to break through the limit. Idiot. Chang Hu sneered inwardly as the four of them stepped into Green Hill Forest. Currently, Chen Feng and his group had reached the depths of the mist. When he witnessed with his own eyes how Wang Yao killed a mutated beast without effort and threw it to Wang to perform gene strengthening, he finally understood why the profit for the gold ant gene was so low. It was a 5-star formula with a high production difficulty. It was a gene reagent that was extremely difficult to produce, yet the effect was nothing spectacular. What Mu Yuan said was indeed correct. These F-class formulas with high star ratings were simply a trap. Luckily, his main goal was to increase his star rating. Otherwise, the formula was totally not worth choosing. Furthermore, these gene reagents could only be used to increase attributes under normal circumstances, and they could only be used once as well. When it came to breaking through one's limit, it was totally useless. Hence, its main target market is those shut-in nerd producers that are too lazy to leave their house. It is indeed a formula that needs to be phased out. Chen Feng sighed. Wang Yao looked at Wang. How much is your spiritual energy now? 81 points. Wang held his head high and looked at Chen Feng proudly. I told you, after we leave the school, I will surpass you and leave you far behind me. How much is your current spiritual energy? 81 points. Chen Feng was expressionless. What? Wang froze immediately while Wang Yao also looked at Chen Feng in amazement. She was very clear on Chen Feng's circumstances. He had also sprinted to 81 points with those circumstances of his. When she recalled that scene of devastation during Chen Feng's gene strengthening yesterday, this Chen Feng is indeed special. How is that possible? Wang blanked. You are spouting nonsense. Right? Shut up. Wang Yao kicked him. Have you not embarrassed yourself enough? Wang lowered his head. Chen Feng only smiled indifferently. Since your spiritual energy has exceeded 80 points, the mutated beasts suitable for your gene strengthening are no longer easy to find. It's about time for you to go to that place. Wang Yao looked toward the depths of the mist. Scatter. She pointed at the air in front of her. The mist around them scattered immediately, and a tunnel appeared in front of them. All the low-level restrictions on their way were immediately removed. This was Wang Yao's strength, removing restrictions by force. Wang Yao pulled her hand back indifferently. The group of three stepped forward. Without the obstruction of the mist and the need to kill any mutated beasts, they reached the place where the spring water originated from in a short period of time. It was a frigid pond with a diameter of several tens of meters. Water streamed down from the summit of the hill into the pond before it streamed down as spring water from the valley. In the center of the frigid pond was a lotus radiating with pure and holy-looking light. Suddenly, hiss, an enormous python appeared. With a terrifying killing intent, it rushed toward the three of them. However, before Chen Feng was able to react, he saw red light flickering in Wang Yao's hand as she grabbed that python before wrenching it into an enormous pile of fried dough. Twist one, and casually tossing it away. Bang! The python was smashed onto the ground and lost its consciousness. Chen Feng. This was the mutated guardian beast of this lotus. Chen Feng observed a moment of silence for that python. Suddenly, a peculiar fragrance appeared. Chen Feng looked toward the frigid pond and saw faint mist start floating up from the water. Slowly, the mist became denser and swirled around the lotus, forming a naturally formed restriction. It's here. Chen Feng's heart leapt slightly. He knew that this was the help Wang Yao needed from him. Although Wang Yao could probably destroy the restriction with force, the lotus would probably get destroyed in the process as well. Let me do it, Chen Feng said softly. He was only here to repay the favor since Wang Yao saved his life yesterday. After this matter was completed, his debt with Wang Yao could be considered to have been cleared. As for Wang hum, radiance swirled around his hands. Chen Feng was about to remove the restriction. Wait. Wang Yao pulled him back. Chen Feng was in doubt. Wang Yao slightly shook her head. She walked to the front, raised her right hand, and aimed at that white lotus. Bang! A terrifying strength was instantly unleashed. Chen Feng's mouth was left hanging. Damn. Does she want to directly destroy this thing? Why doesn't this little girl act in accordance with common sense? However, right at this moment, an overcast howl surfaced from the frigid bond. A frightening power spread out of the frigid bond and destroyed Wang Yao's attack. Rumble. The frigid bond started bubbling while the surface of the pond started shaking. Danger. Chen Feng's expression changed greatly as he hastily retreated. The spring water suddenly exploded. Bang! An enormous monster suddenly emerged from the frigid pond. It had a diameter of 10 meters and its silhouette alone occupied half the pond. Hiss! Chen Feng inhaled a mouthful of cold air. This was actually a huge turtle. The turtle had a huge body with extraordinary rays of light swirling on its shell, giving it an astonishing appearance. On its green-colored skin were layers upon layers of creases that were unimaginably thick. On its neck, a medal full of stains could be seen hanging. The word Duma could be vaguely seen on it. Howl. The huge turtle bellowed. Its oppressive voice brought a terrifying pressure with it, akin to the heavens collapsing. The spring water that was splashed around from the earlier explosion was condensed in midair, turning into multiple ice arrows that were launched toward Chen Feng's group. Wang Yao sneered. HMMPH. Bang! A sword slash descended. A red-colored shockwave spread out and evaporated all the ice arrows. Human, you dare touch the item that I have been waiting 100 years for? The huge turtle opened its mouth and a dreadful killing intent appeared in its small deep black eyes. Chen Feng trembled as he heard this. This huge turtle could actually speak. What kind of freak was this? These valuable materials originally belonged to Mother Nature. When did they become yours? Wang Yao sneered. Hand it over and I will spare your life. You are courting death. The huge turtle roared. Bang! A terrifying power was once again unleashed, engulfing the area like a storm. Wang Yao was not bothered at all. The red-colored huge sword in her hand flickered and the huge turtle was forcefully suppressed on its original spot. Chen Feng, I will leave the rest to you. Understood. Chen Feng inhaled deeply. He was aware that it was now the time for him to act. He stepped forward. Clouds and mist drifted before his eyes. Whoosh! Chen Feng instantly entered the digitized mode. At this moment, Chen Feng did not dare to pause. However, the genes he needed to search for in this restriction reached an amount of 2,000 strains, an amount far surpassing all the restrictions he had ever met before. Luckily, Chen Feng's current spiritual energy had been increased, or else he would not be able to even maintain the activation of the digitized mode. Luck aura. Activate. Chen Feng inhaled deeply. Bang! The luck value dropped rapidly. 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. Chen Feng was able to find several hundreds of missing genes in a flash. However, due to the amount of genes he needed to search this time being too high, he could only advance one step at a time. 1 second, 2 seconds. Time passed. How can a little kid like this remove the frigid bond's restriction? The huge turtle's eyes were full of disdain. In its long years of life, it had seen too many so-called geniuses. It was simply too naive for a mere beginner producer to dream of removing the frigid pond restriction. Wang Yao was calm as water. How would one know without trying? Trying to break the restriction with force. Be careful of its counterattack, the huge turtle threatened. However, right at this moment, a bizarre sound echoed. As the huge turtle turned its head to take a look, it was immediately shocked to find that the frigid bond's restriction had been removed. How many seconds had this taken? 5 or 6 seconds? The huge turtle was somewhat stupefied. After sleeping for 100 years, the beginner producers of the current era were already so powerful. The mist around them dispersed naturally. How is this possible? The huge turtle finally recovered from its shock and an alarmed expression appeared on its face. Due to its long lifespan, it had seen a lot of gene producers. However, it had never seen anyone capable of removing restrictions with such speed, especially not a beginner producer. Not good. The huge turtle recovered from its shock. Since the restriction was removed, then that lotus. Since it was currently engaged with Wang Yao, the lotus was about to fall into Chen Feng's hands. It immediately felt anxious. For that thing, it had waited 100 years. How could it let them take the lotus away easily after 100 years of wait? Just as it was feeling anxious, suddenly, the turtle was surprised to find that a weak spot had appeared in Wang Yao's suppression of him. This gave the turtle a short frame of opportunity. This short frame of opportunity was more than sufficient for experts like them. It was now. The huge turtle roared. Howl. Bang. The skies trembled. It spat out a black-colored light globe. The light globe floated in midair with a faint purple radiance flickering out of it. In a split second, the purple radiance engulfed everyone, with the huge turtle as the center. It spread and enveloped everything without distinction. Everything within 100 meters of it, including Wang Yao, was all hit by the attack. This was the trump card of the huge turtle, life and death domain. I want to kill. The huge turtle was feeling proud. Just as it prepared to decimate them, it shockingly found that the little girl had already awakened. Immediately, it trembled with fear, grabbed onto the white lotus with its mouth, and quickly fled into the frigid pond. The turtle had actually escaped just like that. You finally used this move. A smile appeared on Wang Yao's tiny face. Lotus, why would she want that thing? The reason she intentionally exposed a weak point was because her actual goal was the turtle's life and death domain. This was a formidable illusionary attack that required 100 years of lifespan as the sacrifice to be activated. Life and death domain. Rise. Wang Yao controlled the dreadful purple globe. Hum. Radiance bloomed from the purple globe as expression of pain started appearing on Chen Feng and Wang's face. Cage. Wang Yao raised her hands. Clumps of energy bloomed one after another from her hands before changing into red strings and surrounding the purple globe. As she did this, the energy emitted by the globe changed from a purple color into a transparent color. It begins. Wang Yao's gaze was calm. This was originally a powerful attack. However, she used her formidable spiritual energy to purify the life and death domain, erasing all the negative energy from it. This enabled Wang to experience the huge turtle's 100 years worth of life and death experiences and its experiences in breaking through its limit, using it as boon for him to break through and increase his power. This was her gift to Wang. As for Chen Feng, her gaze swept through Chen Feng. This was a fellow that had appeared unexpectedly. A variable. You originally shouldn't have appeared here. However, since you are here, this is fate. Radiance blossomed from Wang Yao's pair of quick-witted eyes, as if she was able to see through the shackles of time. How much you are able to experience from this life and death domain will depend on yourself. Bang! The red light in Wang Yao's hands shined brightly. Life and death domain. Begin. Somewhere within Green Hill Forest, pitiful screams were reverberating. A youth possessing somewhat graceful looks, Wu Fan, was currently sprawled on the ground as he struggled unceasingly. His whole body twitched and his face twisted. His situation was remarkably similar to that of someone suffering from torture. Chang Hu sighed. Have you sealed off the sound? Sealed. Jiang Ling spread her hands. It's not that I want to nag, but why do you need to let him try this? It's his own request. Chang Hu felt helpless as well. Since this young master requested it, do we dare to not let him try? I did not expect him to suffer to such an extent. This is only a 3-point increase. I remember that even when you guys increased your attributes by 4 points in the past, you all didn't have such a big reaction, right? He is a person with a different status, after all. Jiang Ling shook her head. Seems like later we should just increase his attributes by 1 or 2 points each time. We can only do that. Chang Hu was disappointed. In the later stages of gene strengthening, the mutated beasts with suitable attributes will be harder to find. Seems like we need to stay a few more days here at Green Hill Forest. How could 750,000 be so easy to earn? Jiang Ling smiled. True. Chang Hu spat as greed appeared in his eyes. If we kill this kid, don't act recklessly. Jiang Ling pulled him and said in a low voice, have you forgotten how we were almost found out previously? Even though not many people know us in Gold City, we still shouldn't perform such acts too frequently. Furthermore, this Wu family is not simple as well. You should be careful, lest you kick an iron plate one. I know. Chang Hu felt somewhat regretful. If he were to do that, it would be something that brought him profit without any need for an investment. Currently, the gene strengthening seemed to have reached the final stage. Wu Fan's scream became even more intense. The few of them covered their ears and frowned. Luckily, they had prepared a method to seal off any sounds. Any sound within a zone of 3 meters would be trapped within the zone. Otherwise, with the noise made by Wu Fan, every single one of them would die here. Only when Wu Fan's gene strengthening was completed did Chang Hu stand up. Give him the recovering reagent. Remember, 10,000 per bottle. Profit off him ruthlessly. Chang Hu said viciously. Wait until he recovered himself before we leave. All right. Jiang Ling nodded. Footnotes. 1. Kick an iron plate. an expression Chinese used to describe the situation where one thought they found a person easy to bully but end up meeting someone powerful they can't bully instead.